Formation lap is underway at Nogaro for round 8 of the FIA GT Championship, and some very aggressive tyre warming already from Marcel Fassler.
Yeah.
Just letting Greg Frankie know that he could sweep that car wide any time he likes. I think there was a little bit of psychology already going on the formation lap. Yeah.
Yes, good aggressive stuff from the very outset. Not even racing yet, and already they're proving points to one another on the warm-up lap. Others behind taking things a little more cautiously. But Richard Westbrook, we saw on the GT2 pole, will be wondering what is going to be ahead of him when he plows into turn 1 with all those Ferraris piled up behind, waiting to take a bite out of the back of his Porsche. There is another Porsche out there, of course, it's his teammate. But the number 60 cars, Michael Forston and Marcus Pautala, who it is will start, are down in 21st place overall, 10th in class, and just ahead of another new arrival into the championship that you'll see appearing into shot. There it is at the back, just 3 cars from the rear of the field, a return to racing for Aston Martin.
Yes, G2, because it's a potential GT2 car that hasn't been homologated yet. So enters in G2, and it's something of a test weekend for Aston Martin. We'll keep our eye on that car, and there's a glimpse of it there in this weaving field as we continue this opening formation lap.
Yeah, very much a toe in the water, partly to allow the team to assess where the car is in relation to others, but also to give the FIA a chance to have a look at it both technically and with a view to performance balancing for the 2009 season.
Big field, as you can see. We've got 11 cars on track in GT1, and 2 are missing that were on the entry list, or there would have been 13. There are, in fact, 13 GT2 cars. We're on board with one of them now. We're in 51 with Christian Montanari in the AF Corsa Ferrari, getting himself just settled in the seat and ready for the off. This is the Gigawave car, the number 10 Aston Martin, started here by Alan Simonson. This is the Corvette, the leading car with the strobe lights on, is bunching them up now as we come towards the end of this formation lap, and they resume grid positions side by side instead of nose to tail, and we wait for the chief starter to be satisfied that everything is okay. The pace car will pull aside. The race will go under the control of the poleman in the Corvette, and when the signal goes green at the head of the field, this 8th round of the championship will be go. 24 cars, 12,000 horsepower, barreling towards turn 1, and it is indeed the Celine that gets the drop on Fassler, and I think that was Greg Frankie in front. Now he's in 2nd place still.
Yeah, we're on board with the Alan Simonson in the Gigawave Aston Martin. Just briefly there, Ferrari's looking to pounce on the Porsche, and have they managed that already? No, Richard Westbrook is still there. A little bit of smoke kicked up at the back of the field. But everybody safely through from the look of it. The Corvette still holds advantage, so it's grid order 1, 2, 3 at the moment. Corvette Celine, Corvette Christophe Bouchou staying ahead of Alan Simonson, who looked to be making a good start, but Anthony Kumpen has gained a place at the expense of Zandy Nogaro, the first of the 2 Vitaphone Maseratis, dropping back behind the Celine in the first corner. Somebody getting a bit racy there as well. That's the number 9 car. This is a visitor to the championship. It's the DKR Motorsport car, Jean-Philippe Desros Corvette. Local knowledge will help them, hopefully. They're wishing anyway.
Just a glimpse of that number 2 Maserati, looking quite slow, I thought, on that main straight there, and already I thought dropping back into the clutches of Carl Fendlinger. Unusually, number 2 has qualified ahead of number 1, so that was Michael Bartels and Andrea Bertolini's car at the back end of the GT1 field. This is that parade of Ferraris.
Yep.
Look at them. AF Corsa, an AF Corsa nose to tail with Sierra Scuderia behind, split. Or is that a Scuderia Coscar in the middle there?
Yes, it's Tim Mullen. There are two AF Corsa cars followed by Tim Mullen, then Rob Bell. But Richard Westbrook just making true on his promise that the GT2 cars will be up to speed quicker. He and Montanari had both got past Andrea Bertolini on lap 1. Bertolini has now got past the Ferrari, but still has to make his way back past Richard Westbrook, whose Porsche clearly heads GT2.
Well, yes, it was Bertolini in the middle there, so the number 1 Maserati is actually going slower than the number 2 car, which I thought was a little bit slow just here on the opening lap. And I just thought that Wendlinger was closed down on him, but Carl Wendlinger's got a job on his hands, because that DKR number 9 car, which is Jean-Philippe Darrow, is getting quite racy behind him. The gap is still very small, and Wendlinger, far from closing with the Maserati, is having to go defensive now to keep the rather luridly coloured Corvette behind him.
Yeah, both of those have made their way past Fabrizio Gollin. Mike Hazelman's co-driver, in 9th place at the moment. They will want to do considerably better than that, because their championship hopes depend on a good result here this weekend.
Marcel Fassler's just set the fastest lap of the race early for that, of course, and there'll be faster ones later perhaps. But 1:25.4 his time, which is a couple of seconds slower than his qualifying time, which is about indicative of what the race pace is likely to be. Bouchou quoted in the papers that he's going to win here today if he's got anything to do with it. And if I know him, he's going to try his hardest.
He will give it his absolute best. It's a place he loves. He's got very fond memories of it. Won his first F3 race ever here at Nogaro, so a place dear to his heart.
Did they have Formula 3 in those days?
Yes, they did, indeed. Not quite as we know it now, because they used to race and overtake and all sorts.
Christophe Bouchou, 20 years in motorsport, and he's still mad for it. And it shows every time he gets on track. The AF Corsa battle here, 51 and 50, the wrong way round from the championship position. Montanari ahead of Bruni. Bruni champion-elect in GT2 and could win the title here this weekend. And it's not going to go that easily, is it, for him, because he's got a lot. Rob Bell moving past Tim Mullen there in the 56 CR Scuderia car, moving past 55, and that brings him into contention to have a go at Bruni. The gap only half a second or so, as you can see. So
yeah, Bruni's car hampered by the super ballast, the maximum success ballast that the car can carry is 75 kilos plus the 35 they carry for having 2 professional drivers on board, and yet they're able to maintain pace with pretty much everyone but Richard Westbrook, who's shown a clean pair of heels to this gaggle of Ferraris. 2.5 seconds his advantage last time past timing the scoring. Let's see how it's grown, if it's grown this time. Yes, it has. It looks as though it's going to be considerably more as the Ferraris squabble amongst themselves. Westbrook already through and onto his net lap, but Montanari still not yet through. It's out by another second. 3.6 the advantage the Porsche has. Richard Westbrook, new co-driver this weekend, as Manu Collard's gone off to the States to do his work for Penske Porsche at the Petit Le Mans race. But Alex Davison stepping well into.
Graham, look at this, because Greg Franke
coming up onto the
just
back.
put the fastest lap of the race down and is right behind Marcel Fassler. And now he, I think, has got the car up to temperature and the tyres up to temperature. Fassler has got a job of work to do, because this Celine is pretty much on a par with the Corvette for horsepower. And although it's quite an old car and the Corvette quite a new car, we've seen that when the ballast is removed, that the Celine can qualify well and can race well. Greg Franke is very keen to do something here this weekend for long competition. This is their home race as well. They're a French team, and this is at home.
Yeah, and although, as you say, it's an old car in terms of its design relative to the C6R Corvette ahead of it, this one actually is brand new from the wheels up, of course, because it's the one that they had to rebuild from a pile of rubble.
Old design, I'll correct myself on that one. It is, as we have pointed out extensively, brand new of necessity.
Yeah. Andrea Bertolini still struggling to really make headway in the GT1 pack at the moment. Again, they're carrying a lot of weight, but made his way past the Esteban Tuero and Gaston Mazzacani driven the Ferrari 550 Maranello, the 2 Argentine drivers in the series, to help promote the fact that our final race this season, not in Europe at all, but down in Argentina at the brand new circuit of San Luis. Meanwhile, it's Ferraris wherever you look.
Apart from up front, of course, Richard Westbrook is still out there somewhere. We're still running with Bruni, and we've got 61 Westbrook, 51 Montanari, 50 Bruni, 56 Bell, 55 Mullen. That's how it goes in GT2 at the moment. At the back end of that little field, you can see the number 57 car, and just bringing up the tail on. There is the pass that I think Rob Bell has been promising.
But yes, I think that's Bruni making his way past. Yeah, I think that was Bruni making his way past Montanari, outbraking or perhaps being offered the opportunity to get ahead. And now it'll be up to Montanari to try and hold back the CR Scuderia cars in pursuit, because Rob Bell is one of the challengers to the title crown. They're a few points off, having not had the best of the luck this season at CR Scuderia. But Rob Bell, a very strong driver in his own right, Le Mans Series champion again this year, and paired with Andrew Kokordi.
That 50 car just shot away then, didn't it? After it got past.
Cork out of bottle. Yes.
As you were saying, absolutely loaded with ballast, and yet still able to do that. And it does reinforce the view that every time somebody puts extra ballast on one of the Air Corsa cars, they plug in the computer, turn up the wick a bit, it makes no difference at all.
No, and of course Jimmy Bruni, last year's GT2 victor here, sharing with Stefano Ortelli, so it's not as though he doesn't know his way around this circuit as well, and he'll be keen to not only restore Ferrari's honour by getting up to and past Richard Westbrook's Porsche, which still heads the field. Oh, and an early stop and disappointment for, or is that a tactical decision?
Stuart Roden
does these things.
He does, doesn't he? Lights a wild card on the tactical front.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure what he's achieving by that one.
Well, he must be fairly sure. Perhaps they had an issue around the tyres that they qualified on, and they want to get a fresh set on. There is Andrew Kokordi trying his absolute best to get up alongside and past Christian Montanari, but no go at the moment. That allows Tim Mullen to get right back up onto the tail of his teammate, and prompts me to say a quick hello to Ron Mullen, Tim's dad, who's been unwell lately, and Tim wishing you, as we do, a speedy recovery, Ron, and he's hoping for a strong race result to help you on your way.
In 51 then, with Montanari for a moment there, as this GT2 battle continues to rage behind the leader, Richard Westbrook. And we haven't seen a lot of the Porsche in this segment of the race so far. Scant reward for being on pole and then galloping away in the lead. But that's exactly what he's got, 5.7 seconds of a lead. Last time he went past the timing beam at the pit lane start-finish line, which wasn't that long ago. And this continues to be a battle, although I think Marcel Fassler's now got the Corvette in the groove, hasn't he?
Yes, he has. He still looks a little nervous though on the turn in there, and Bouchou has come up closer onto the back of the Celine ahead of him as well, so making good on his promise to try and get up to the very sharp end of things. Bouchou paired with Alex Muller, Xavier Marson. Alex Muller is the man who's missed out this weekend as a result of the withdrawal of the 36 car following the accident to Yuri Janak. The Xavier Marson, the young Dutch driver who's made quite a name for himself in the SRT team, who themselves have done extraordinarily well in their first full season of FIA GT racing.
Well, 51, and then behind that 56, 55. Still in the cockpit here, and you can see the gap beginning to open out as Bruni somehow or other manages to pull away in the number 50 car. And I just wonder how much of a rear guard action we're seeing from Jimmy Bruni here, from
Christian Montanari. Yeah, his task as much as anything will be to keep Rob Bell and Tim Mullen at bay. So far he's doing that successfully, to the point where Maurizio Mediani in the 57 car, and another new pairing this weekend, Mediani taking the place of Fabrizio Del Monte for the weekend, Henri Moser, his co-driver in the Kessel Racing car.
Here's the Aston Martin though we were talking about. This is the G2 entry. Proper drivers, Stefan Mucker and Thomas Enger, currently in 18th place and in the middle of the GT2 squad. You can see it in front of the number 95 car there, Stefan Mucker. We've seen in this championship before, and what I was going to say is significantly for the championship, the number 77 car, which was so outstandingly fast at Spa, is currently lurking in 23rd place on our leaderboard.
Having made a pit stop, however,
yes.
So maybe that's another tactical change.
What's going on there? Because Jamie Davis is in the seat of 62 after a pit stop, but Paolo Ruberti is in the seat of the BMS car.
Well, they didn't have a very good time of it in qualifying. They ended up only 8th on the GT2 grid, as we've got the Picom car then, 95, sailing up alongside Matthias Russo, taking the battle back to Stefan Mucker, who it is aboard the Aston Martin at the start, and that's the Picon racing car making his way past. That Aston looks good though, doesn't it?
It does look good, and we've seen this happen a couple of times in racing here this weekend. I think Stefan Mucker kept that a little bit high there and left the door open for the Ferrari. I think they're obviously not in any hurry to interfere with the championship battle that's going on. It's a test outing as far as Aston Martin is concerned in GT2, and they obviously don't want to spoil things for anybody else by becoming involved in little struggles. And speaking of little struggles, I think Greg Frankie is going to have one on his hands very shortly, because look who is closing up on him. As you said earlier on, Christophe Bouchou is slowly drawing up on the back end of the Celine, although not as quickly as I'm sure he would have liked.
No, last time round Frankie was the quickest of the three top drivers, the three top placed cars, but this time it's Fessler who's now got a gap of a second back to Frankie, and only half a second from there back to Bouchou. In fact, less as we look at that gap. Constantino again under braking for that long sweeping right-hander, and they head out down the straight once more. The Celine and the Corvette, of course, both benefiting from massive V8 American power under the hoods, be it at the front or the back.
Bouchou looking very composed with that car, and of course he does, as we say, know his way around here pretty much in his sleep, so he'll know where the opportunities are, but he's got to get close enough to create one, and at the moment that is not the case.
Ferraris in GT2 beginning to pick up pace as well, all setting their personal best laps last time round. All the pack howling round behind Richard Westbrook, but Westbrook has stretched his lead to some 6 seconds now at the head of GT2, but we're intent on this battle at the very head of the field in GT1, and again it's just evened out a little bit. The three cars equidistant with the Celine, the Meat and the Corvette sandwich.
Yes, most of those Ferraris setting their personal best times are actually set them times better than Richard Westbrook's, which is a little bit ominous from where we're sitting. Dayro in the number 9 Corvette has passed Golin, and they've been swapping places. Carl Mendinger is still 7th, 6th it's Sandy Nogaro, 5th Anthony Kumpen, and then it is Alan Simonson in the number 10 Aston Martin. That car's holding 4th place at the moment, and up in front, as we've seen, it's Bouchou, Frankie and Fassler. And here we go again in GT2 with this little parade. Westbrook isn't visible at the moment to us or to them, and in second place is Jimmy Bruning. Behind him, Christian Montanari in 51, and then it's Bell, Mullen, Mediani, Russo, and right down in 19th spot is the Aston Martin running in G2, and that's Stefan Mucker stood ahead of the Porsche of Marcus Bautella. Fassler, Frankie and Bouchou first, second and third in GT1 then, and then it's Westbrook, Bruni and Montanari in GT2, and that's where we are at the moment. One of the gaps here, Graham, they're slightly growing, aren't they?
Only just that little bit, just the odd 10th nipped here and there. No traffic to be taken care of. There's Richard Westbrook, the man serenely at the head of the GT2 field. And how good is it to say that won't Manu Collard be upset that on the one occasion that he's been absent from the team, they've thus far at least had their best result so far. We're about to have a word, I think, with his new partner for the weekend, Alex Davison.
Alex, which certainly has gotten off to a good start.
All looks good so far. Just watching the lap times to see what's going on with everybody's tyres, and just keep pushing, you know. They're not really endurance races, these FIA races. It's only 2 hours, so we'll push 100% for the whole race and see where we end up.
How have you found the track this weekend?
Oh, it's fun. I mean, it's a little bit tricky, but it's not tight and twisty, and I didn't expect it to suit our car as well as it has, and so we're rapt that everything's going so well so far.
Thank you, Alex.
Right.
And in fact, that Richard Westbrook's worst fears weren't realised, because he was expected to be mugged by 9 Ferraris in turn 1, and it didn't happen, did it?
Far from it. No, he's actually been able to maintain the lead, which is now up to some almost 6 seconds. last time through, and Jimmy Bruni lapping in almost exactly the same time, but not able to make any real headway. The odd 10th here or there being traded between the two, but the gap consistently hovering around the 6-second mark. And great to be able to say it's Porsche at the head of the field for once, because it has been an absolute domination this year by the F430 Ferraris.
Yes, the Porsches have had their moments, or rather the Pro Speed Porsches have had their moments, and they've had silly little things like a headlight dropping off in Adria, just I think from being curbed far too often by a very enthusiastic Emmanuel Collard, and it's kept them off from the top spots which we expected them to reap. Richard Westbrook continues to lead GT2 by a margin that's still creeping up. Bruni is 5.5 seconds behind him, and he's lapping occasionally on the same pace, occasionally a little bit faster and occasionally a little bit slower. So it's pretty much even Stevens there. What's gone wrong with Andrea Bertolini in the number 1 car, though? 10th place now. They lead the championship. They will lead the championship when they leave here, no matter what happens. But at the moment, Bertolini and Bartel's pairing are on course for a point to give them 54 at the end of the weekend. And their championship rivals, Mike Hazelman and Fabrizio Gollin, are going to get 2, which isn't going to help them at all. So this is a reasonable place all the time they can see that Corvette.
Yeah, they're going to have to move up the leaderboard a couple of places to achieve those points, but it's entirely possible that they will, of course.
So target for tonight, as far as Andrea Bertolini is concerned, is the Corvette in front of him.
Yeah.
And that's the situation at the front of the leaderboard, still as it was: Fassler, Frankie, Bouchou, Corvette, Saleen, Corvette. But the championship battle, if there is one, because the number 1 Maserati is looking fairly strong at the moment. The team came here with an 11-point lead. And there are their championship rivals just ahead through the windscreen, and all the time they're that close, the difference between them is only a point, and it's job done for Maserati, and a little bit more weight off.
Yes, and the early pit stoppers, and we see one of them there, the Scuderia Coscar, now in the hands of Jamie Davies, still not able to make good the benefit of those early stops.
Here's somebody making good.
Yeah, absolutely. Here's Christophe Bouchou making his way past the Saleen. That didn't look to be on the cards from the timing screens last time round, so maybe Frankie has a bit of a problem, or maybe Bouchou has just found an extra 10th somewhere, because he's made his way past, and instead of being 0.9 of a second behind, he's converted that into a lead of 0.7 over Frankie this time round.
Well, if anybody can find a 10th of a second around here, it ought to be Christophe Bouchou, because he knows this place better than anybody. Some of the teams came here testing at the beginning of the year. That gives them a bit of an advantage, of course.
And the bare numbers on the screen would indicate that it was a problem for Frankie, a mistake by Frankie that allowed Bouchou to come through, because he and Fessler maintained the same speeds on that last lap, Frankie being the one who went slower. That has allowed Alan Simonson in the lead Aston Martin to get a little closer to the back of this battle, but he's still some 5 seconds adrift, and although they're not carrying any ballast, the Aston Martin perhaps not quite as well suited as Vincent Voss relaxes, having already had 1 race this morning, and GT3 relaxes while his partner does all the hard work in the cockpit at the start of this fabulous event at Nogaro. Yes,
as you say, it's this car that went slower as a 129. Everybody else in the top 10 except the Argentine Ferrari was on a 127 something, so obviously something has gone wrong for Greg Frankie.
Things starting to go a little more right for Andrea Bertolini after a somewhat tardy start, it must be said, when he was overtaken by a couple of GT2 cars from the start line. But Bertolini's made his way back up past them, past the Esteban Tuero driven ACA Argentina F550 Maranello, and he's now hard on the back of Fabrizio Gollin's car. This is the one for which with which they are in contention for the championship. But Bertolini and Bartels hold a good points lead, and if they can just keep that car within sight, but ideally in sight in their mirrors, then they will be happy whatever the overall outcome this weekend.
And I think that the tyres are coming to the Maserati on there. It starts on cold tyres, and it keeps, once it's got them in the groove, it will keep them, and that will last until probably the end of its hour, or whenever they tend to stop. We've seen this so many times that this car is kinder to its tyres than everything around it, and I think it was just a bit slow to get the heat into them, but now it's brought them up, and now Bertolini's got the best of them, and I don't think there's been any change for Fabrizio Gollin. And if anything, the Corvette's probably chewing the tyres, isn't it?
Yeah, and as for Bertolini, so true for Nogaro, who's number 2 Maserati. We saw a couple of shots ago just towing up onto the back of Anthony Kumpen's version of a Celine. The Belgian pairing have had a fairly torrid time this season, and there is that battle with the Celine ahead of the Maserati, but only just. That gap has come down and down consistently over the last few laps as the tyres, as you say, Richard, have come to the Maserati, and it's now making better use of them than the Celine ahead can. Stabs of flame indicate just how hard they're trying to. Anthony Kumpen is trying to keep his Belgian car ahead. That's Wendlinger's Aston caught up in the middle of it all, and he's between these two battles, one between Maserati and Celine, the other between Maserati and Corvette. The Aston is plumb in the middle of it all.
Well, Wendlinger, funnily enough, is faster than either the car in front of him or the car behind him on his last lap. So we're not quite sure, of course, where the Aston Martin is in terms of its tyres, or whether they are bringing their best.
A little hint might be that in qualifying we saw Wendlinger have a big lock-up, and of course that will probably have taken some of the life out of at least the right front tyre on that car, so it's probably not performing at its very best. Wouldn't be too surprising if they were to make this first short stint, a relatively short one, to get Ryan Sharp into the car and then allow Wendlinger a long run to the flag at the end, but what do I know?
Well, the thing is that both drivers must drive the car. They must spend a minimum time of 35 consecutive minutes at the steering wheel. So you would think after 35 minutes Wendlinger could come in and they could do anything they like after Ryan Sharp has driven the next 35 minutes, as you say. Yeah,
and the first stint doesn't even have to be necessarily 35 minutes, because it's only that each driver must do a total of 35. So they could have brought Wendlinger in earlier, but while he's happy that the performance of the car is there or thereabouts and they're not losing places to those around them, it makes sense to get life out of those tyres while they can, so that they're not caning the next set too hard.
Wendlinger at the moment is 16 seconds down on the race leader and 0.2 of a second away from Sandy Nogaro in the number 2 Aston Martin, and he's 1.8 seconds ahead of Fabrizio Gollin.
Anthony Kumpen has brought the Celine in for a stop, as has the DKR entry of Jean-Philippe Desraux. We saw that car early on, the red and blue Corvette with the McDonald's sponsorship. They've pitted as well early on. That's elevated Bertolini up to 8th place, the last of the point scorers, but Gollin still just ahead of him by half a second and in 7th.
Starting, as you can see, to go past the back end of the GT2 cars. That was Richard Williams in the 59 car, just being lapped by this pair as they go chasing after Fassman. You just got a glimpse of the roof there of the Corvette shooting under the lens of the camera, because this is still the closest battle, because Greg Franke, although he's been passed by Christophe Bush, he doesn't want to let him go, does he?
No, I wonder if there's a problem there for the DKR Motorsport car, the number 9 Corvette into the championship for the first time. The car came into the pits some while ago and has remained there, not reappearing in the same sort of timescale that Anthony Kumpen's charge did, presumably now in the hands of Bert Longines. There is the 62 Scuderia Ecosse car, Jamie Davies, still bar the DKR car down at the bottom of the field, but lapping in times consistently quicker than those few ahead of him.
Yes, Davis, an early stop for the Scuderia Ecosse car, and as we said, Stuart Roden does like to play the tactic game. We haven't quite worked out what it is, but then it may all become clear later on. It could easily be something to do with the tyres. I can't remember what happened to that car in qualifying. I don't think anything bad happened to them, did it?
No, they ended up just ahead of in fact they ended up best of the Pirelli runners. The Scuderia Ecosse car, the 62, just ahead of Matteo Melucelli on qualifying conditions, and just ahead still on the racetrack this afternoon is Christophe Bouchou, but it's a decreasing gap. Greg Franke, having recovered from the error that saw him lose second place to Bouchou just a few laps back, has fought his way back up on the tail, only now to be held up by one of the BMS Scuderia Italian cars. That's a 78 car, started by Joel Camathias, and a new team member this weekend, Jose Manuel Balbiani, makes it 5 Argentines in the driver lineup this weekend.
And Camathias just bundled aside by Greg Franke there in the Celine.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's cost him a little bit of time, which he'll have to make up. Bouchou managed to muscle his way past a couple of corners earlier, and this is one of those tracks that not only has a lot of technical corners on it, but it's quite narrow. There's not a lot of space, and the drivers are reluctant to get off the clean racing line and into the dirt and the marbles that inhabit the outside.
Well, Christophe Bouchou is just 1.6 seconds behind Marcel Feston. Now that was a bigger gap earlier on, wasn't it? So there's no doubt that Bouchou is closing in on the race leader, although their last laps were a tenth different, and in fact it was Fasno who was fastest, and he's still, his fastest lap is faster than Bouchou's fastest lap, but the gap is definitely shrinking.
And to the naked eye, the gap between the 7 and the 3 cars that we're looking at battling for second place has shrunk yet again, and Franchi right back up onto the tail of Christophe Bouchou, the man with the local knowledge and the desire to bring that car home. Isn't really having it all his own way at the moment. The refettled Celine, the Lara Competition people having done sterling work to rebuild it from a pile of bits, frankly, and their reward is a very strong showing in the early phases of the race here, with Vasel Prost to follow.
Fassler, after 18 laps, still your race leader in GT1. Christophe Bouchou, second place. Greg Frankie, third. Then it is Alan Simonson in the number 10 car. That's the Gigawave Aston Martin. Sandy Negrau's in fifth. Lemlinger sixth. Gollin is seventh. Bertolini still in eighth place.
Yes, and suffering a little bit in traffic there as the gap has gone back out between Gollin and Bertolini to almost a second last time round. Here was the car we saw earlier just being lapped. Joel Comathius to hand over to Jose Manuel Balbiani, refueling at the same time. There'll be tyres to go onto that car as well.
As always,
the tyres are standing by, but they're not being changed.
That's on the floor.
That's just a spare belt. Mechanics often carry a spare belt with them in case one gets shed as the car comes in. This is the battle that's closed right up again, courtesy of traffic once more. This time the 77 BMS Scuderia car just disappearing out of shot on our left as Bertolini renews his battle with the Corvette ahead of him. The Asenco, the GMAC car being caught but not yet passed by Bertolini, but he's now looking racier than ever. Having seen the gap stretched due to traffic, he's managed to get it back again and is all under control as far as Bertolini's concerned. As long as he can keep that car in sight, then at some point he feels he'll be able to pass it, whether it's on the track or in the pit lane, where the Vitafone team seem to have a different sense of time to everybody else.
Yes, they do manage to collect a couple of seconds every time the car comes in for a pit stop. It must make two, and that stands to reason therefore that if you can turn your car around faster than anybody else, you'll make up time at the pit stops, which is, as we always say, very dispiriting for a driver to go and drive the wheels off a car to gain a few fractions of a second, only to have them taken away again at a pit stop, and that's not really good news for Rob Bell.
No, and that's very atypical of Rob Bell's normal behaviour. A very safe pair of hands normally. We didn't see the start of that, only the end of it, so we don't know if he was encouraged into that or just got a little optimistic. He's down the inside of the just lost the back end under braking, managed to avoid serious contact with the 51 Montanari car, which in turn has lost the place to Tim Mullen. So Ron, I hope you're watching that one.
I'd like to see that again, because I'm not entirely certain that the 51 car didn't just step out of line at the back and tap the front end of Rob Bell's car and send him skittering off there. I think that was just two people braking as late as they dared, and they both pretty much got it wrong, didn't they? Yeah,
it might have been 6 and 2-3 as Matthias Russo brings the Picon, the advanced engineering car rather, into the pit lane for their first stop. He'll hand over to Luis Perez-Companc.
So a little bit of drama in GT2, which has adversely affected Rob Bell and benefited Tim Mullen, as you say. So it's Westbrook, Bruni, Mullen first, second and third in GT2 at the moment, and 95 in the pits, as no one seems to have a clear strategy here. There are cars stopping at odd times, and everybody's got their own take on what is the best way to run this race.
Yeah, we're about half an hour in, so it's not unreasonable that there should be more of the routine pit stop window. The car taking a little time to refire there. They seem to have done everything other than get it going. Here we go. Compact finally urging the car into life again, as Rob Bell has now to make good on the mistake that befell him, whether on his own or with a little help from Christian Montanari, the beneficiary there being Tim Mullen, who's up to third in class behind Jimmy Bruni, last year's victor in the class with Stefano Telli, but still both of them not able to close down seriously on Richard Westbrook, although that gap has come down by about a second over the last 5 laps or so.
Bruni is the man in 50 chasing after Richard Westbrook. We're on board with Christian Montanari, who's a couple of places further back, looking at the tail end of Tim Mullen, just scooting off from the picture and looking in his mirrors, I dare say, to see how close Rob Bell is, because, as you say, Rob Bell, safe pair of hands and also very quick, will want to make up for that as quickly as he can and carry on and do what he was trying to do the first time.
Yes, and in the melee, the car there in shot 57, Maurizio Mediani sharing with Ori Moser this weekend in the Kessel Racing version of an F430 Ferrari, has managed to make up that place as well, while Rob Bell was recovering, and is now hard on the tail of Christian Montanari, the Monegasque driver, having his mirrors full of yet another Ferrari. Having seen one slip by, he's now got another one to contend with, and in the mix has come Anthony Kumpen's car, now in the hands of Bert Longin, back from their pit stop, but running down towards the end of the field, as is the DKR car, still the Julien Canal driven Corvette C6R.
That's actually right at the tail end of the field. Longin just in front in 23rd place, but everybody else more or less owes us a pit stop, especially everyone in GT1. Or everyone else in GT1, the top 9 cars at the moment on track are GT1 cars. Not one of them has made a pit stop, and we are over half an hour into it. But the pit stop window could go as long as an hour in terms of fuel.
Yes, it can. This little battle we're looking at between 33, 6 and 1, the Aston, the Corvette and the Maserati, is closed up somewhat, as interested onlooker Jean-Denis Delatraz keeps an eye on what his partner Marcel Fessler is doing up at the head of field. So Mike Hazelmans on the other side of the garage is keeping perhaps a more urgent eye on what Fabrizio Gollin's fate is to be once Bertolini gets right up onto the back. But so far Gollin has shown his ability to make the Corvette as wide as possible and keep the Maserati at bay, but they need to do more than that. They need to get further up the field themselves to maximise their own point score, irrespective of what happens to the Maserati, because if they don't, this championship is pretty much over.
Yes, it's true to say that just being ahead of the Maserati isn't good enough. The points difference is so large that they need a big haul of points and to be ahead of the Maserati, and at the moment only one of those things is happening, and it's not really the right one. GT2, let's not forget that AF Corsa could take the title this weekend. At the moment, Richard Westbrook's really the spoiler in that particular scenario, but we have a long way to go.
We do, and Westbrook's Porsche may be just starting to struggle on its set of tyres as its times are falling away slightly. It may be traffic, we can't always see what's going on, but this is the battle we were talking about, still for a fairly lowly points scoring points, a 7th, but Bertolini right up alongside now. The Porsche is number 60 there, the second string Porsche, having just held them up, and he's made it through. Yes, he has held that line clearly, and Gollin, not able to respond, has had to let the Maserati go through. That's the view through the windscreen of Marcus Paltala, whose Porsche inadvertently perhaps formed the block through which the Corvette couldn't go, but which the Maserati did. Then the Bertolini will now be off in pursuit of Carl Wendlinger, whose Aston Martin is some second or so ahead.
That was Michael Bartels in the Peter Pan pit garage with his crash helmet on. And one suspects that he is ready to go. Although often in the past we've seen Michael Bartels fully suited and booted ages before the car comes in, but he does look final tightening of the straps. He is ready to race, isn't he?
Yes, and he always on race day has that intense look about him that says, I'm ready, I'm ready, I'm ready. He is so focused, that man, as a driver and as a team owner. His enthusiasm knows no bounds.
Interesting to see how long Bertolini stays out. We've seen this so many times before where we thought, if I was Andrea Bertolini, I'd stop now. As indeed has Marcus Paltala, handing over to Mikael Forsten in the number 60 Porsche that was just caught up in that little scrap. And as you say, Graham, it was in the way when Fabrizio Golin had to make a decision, and he rather, in making it, handed that pass on a plate to Andrea Bertolini, didn't he?
Yes, having not... Oh, now that's not meant to happen, is it? There's been contact there somewhere, or a stone perhaps. We saw this last time, didn't we?
The other one.
That, yes, Collard's car suffered from a whole radiator as a result of picking up some debris or a stone through that protective mesh. But now what have we got? We've got a real battle going on here for the lead, because Fessler has suddenly somehow fallen back into the clutches of Christophe Bouchou, and Franchi coming up as well. The three of them vying for the lead, and it's Bouchou who's looking the raciest of the three at the moment, having really reduced that gap to nothing. Fessler suddenly putting in a lap almost a second slower than the pursuing pair behind him, and paying the price, because now he can't concentrate on just looking at the track ahead. He's got to drive defensively, he's got to keep Bouchou back, and Bouchou will have none of it. He's one of the hard men of racing, and if I were in Fessler's shoes now, I would be getting a little nervous.
Absolutely true. Christophe Bouchou does fireworks for a living, doesn't he? And he's all over Marcel Fessler's Corvette now. And we're coming to the classic moment at Nogaro, end of the aerodrome straight, and he pops out of the slipstream. Franchi wants to go with him, and Bouchou had a little bit to think about there, and that, I think, distracted him just enough to give Marcel Fessler a reprieve, although I'm not really sure that Bouchou was close enough for that, but he was rehearsing it, wasn't he?
Yes, I think that was, as you say, perhaps more of a rehearsal than anything. He'll be the 60 car, Paltala's car, has been pushed back into the garage for the time being, so a delay, if not a failure to start for Michael Forston. Here is that lead battle again, the top three tied together by a piece of string, and Bouchou at the moment looking the best place to make up a place. Franchi has got right up onto the back of the battle, but although he made that jinking manoeuvre at the end of the main straight last time round, it wasn't enough, and I think Bouchou, perhaps if he tucked into that slipstream just a wee bit longer down the straight and dived out later, may just have the legs on the Fessler car. Maybe his tyres are in better shape than those of Fessler.
It may well be that Christophe Bouchou's looking to do this somewhere else. We've seen a couple of people try to overtake in other places. Hasn't always paid off. And there's a big cloud of smoke from a locked up. Was that Jamie Davis?
Yeah,
I think it was a GT2 Ferrari.
It was a Ferrari. I'm not sure it was one of the Scuderia cars, the CR Scuderia cars, but we'll have a look next time we get a chance to see who's doing what to who.
I think
there's
right.
A pair of Ferraris involved there, so a little excitement between the two of them.
It was indeed CR Scuderia, and here comes Christophe Bouchou's opportunity to do something about this, but he's got more to worry about because Franchi's pushing him. He's on the inside, but Fessler's got track position in front of him.
Yeah, but slow through the corner there, through the first element of that corner. Fessler really struggling to keep the car going and allowing Bouchou a better run through the corner.
Nose to tail then. Fessler, Bouchou, Franchi, and this battle looks as though it is going to rage until someone blinks and one of these cars goes into pit lane for its first scheduled stop. Bouchou is getting a little bit fretful now because he can see the traffic in front of him, and he knows that this is an opportunity to box Fessler in behind the Ferrari, and he will use that to make the pass. Righty-ho, then there it is. Through he goes, as easy as you like. Christophe Bouchou, I said he was looking for an opportunity to do it somewhere else other than the end of the aerodrome straight, and he just popped up on the inside of Marcel Fessler and nicked the lead from him like taking sweeties from a baby, that one. And Marcel Fessler isn't a baby, is he?
Well recovered, Richie. Franchi looks to follow the example set by Christophe Bouchou. Hasn't got the years of experience behind him, but nonetheless got the determination and the car under him, he feels, to make that pass stick. We've got other cars coming up into the picture as well. The GT2 and G2 battle behind. Stefan Mucker ahead of Paolo Roberti at the moment. The Aston Martin just able to keep pace with a genuine GT2 car. Of course, the G2 car not yet having been through the process of getting itself into the full GT2 category. That may follow. We're on board now with Alan Simonsen, and he's brought the gap down between himself and Greg Franchi, while the others have been battling battling themselves. It's some 3 seconds between fourth and third, but not close enough yet to start to make an attack.
You can see the Corvette starting to loosen up a bit on its tyres, and it may well have seen the best of them. But I'll tell you what, I think Christophe Bouchou was always going to do that, and I think he just showed the front end of that Corvette to Marcel Fassler every time at the end of the front straight, just to convince him it was going to be there, and then just snuck up on him.
Simonsen has suddenly found a turn of pace in the 28s, while the others battling amongst themselves are holding each other up. And the result is what you see through the windscreen of the Gigawave sponsored car. It's a solid fourth place now, and within touching distance of the back of the Celine. That's been kicked up behind by Zandy Nogaro, whose Maserati is equally speeding up down in the 27s, as is Carl Wendlinger and Bertolini. So the whole GT1 field is starting to close up down the inside, all locked up. Will he be able to hold it? No, he won't. The 5-car dives back in on the inside. Franchi made his way past Fessler, but couldn't keep it going. Now we've got Simonsen making his way past the CR Scuderia GT2 car to try and renew his attack on what he now knows is a Celine with very much flat-spotted tyres as a result of that outbraking manoeuvre that worked for a moment but couldn't hang on to it.
That's because Marcel Fassler's got a problem. He's definitely the roadblock here, and that's why all these people are piling up behind him, because Bouchou's long gone now. Marcel Fassler is doing his best to keep that Corvette on the pace, but he can't do it. And that if Greg Franke doesn't do to him what Bouchou did, I'll be very surprised. Vincent Voss watching from the garage there and waiting nervously. That's the Gigawave crew waiting to see what Alan Simonsen's going to do. But the real issue is what Marcel Fassler's going to do, because I think his tyres are definitely past their sell-by, and he's now just driving as defensively as he can, but he can't keep it up forever.
No, as a team manager, you've got to start looking at the option of bringing Fessler in sooner rather than later to get a fresh set of boots on there and to hand over to birthday boy this week, Jean-Denis Delatraz, to do that middle stint before they start losing too much time to Bouchou, who's serenely going off into the distance by a second or so. And that is the GT2 battle. Suddenly it's 55. Tim Mullen, who is muscling his way past Richard Westbrook into the lead of GT2, and first time I think that Mullen has made his way up to the very top of the GT2 class. He promised his dad a good result this weekend, and he seems to be making good on his promise, and with Andrea Piccini to follow.
That's a thought, isn't it? But Tim Mullen, of course, will have led the GT2 from time to time during the pit stop things. We're not counting that. No. This is a passing manoeuvre that gives him, and what a passing manoeuvre it was, that gives him the race lead. Richard Westbrook won't be happy with that, but as we speculated before, he's probably seen the best of his tyres as well. And as you say, team managers now will be looking at their stopwatches and thinking, now is the time, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it can't be long before Marcel Fassler has to be brought into pit lane to avoid falling too far behind Bouchou, and Bouchou himself making his way past another gaggle of back markers. There is the Celine in second place. Fassler coming now under greater and greater pressure from Simonsen. So Franke's already through. Simonsen's looking to follow, but Nogaro now is big in Alan Simonsen's mirrors. The Aston Martin having a bit of a torrid time of it in the middle of this battle, but Alan Simonsen's up to it. The Dane, who spent a lot of his time racing down in Australia, is no stranger to this sort of pressure and will handle it just as well as anyone else.
Well, it's definite that Marcel Fassler is going backwards now, and it's only a question of how much further he goes before they call him in for a change of tyres and a change of drivers. They've obviously got a plan and they're trying to stick to it. But look, here comes Simonsen now, and I don't think Marcel Fassler will be able to defend himself against that. Doesn't even try, really. Shuts the door on Sandy Nogaro. Just one at a time, please, boys. Let's just try and keep this decent. But Sandy Nogaro is just a question of time where he does it. He'll be looking for an opportunity as well. And I think, and he's sideways there. Sandy Nogaro trying to get on the inside of Marcel Fassler there, but it didn't quite happen for him. But you can see how much quicker now the Maserati is than the Corvette. And if he doesn't go in this time around, I will be surprised, I've got to say.
Yeah, we've seen Sandy Nogaro have a few red mist moments this season, but hopefully he will be able to make a clean and fair pass on the Corvette some point during the lap. But you can see how quickly from the back of the Gigawave car, how quickly Simonsen is pulling away from the Corvette that he's just passed, and indeed in comes Fassler, having to give best to the conditions of the tyres that he's depending on for his grip. It's no good having a lot of power in your engine if you can't put it through the tyres and onto the track. It's wasted.
So Marcel Fessler, as you say, handing over to birthday boy Jean-Denis Delatraz, looking lean and mean as this season has gone past. He's not the youngest, he wasn't, I don't think, the fittest driver at the start of this season, but he's looked more and more like a frontline aggressive driver as the season has gone past. And gone are the days, I think, where you were wondering just how long he could stay on the pace.
Yeah, on goes that fresh set of Michelin rubber. Here is the lead car again, but again coming up onto his tail, giving any hint of giving up yet is Greg Franke in the Celine. We saw Vincent Voss a few laps ago sitting, looking very relaxed, no sign of preparations for a stop there. So a long first stint in order, perhaps for Greg Franke before Vincent Voss takes over. But Christophe Bouchou currently in the lead, but it's a shrinking lead, and it's the Celine that's making up all the running.
Well, this is going to be interesting, as Bouchou is the one who got creative blue flags waving in the background at the GT2 cars to let them know the leaders are coming through, but they've got things of their own to think about. Tim Mullen is just inching away from Richard Westbrook in GT2, having gone past him now, and you can see the pit lane starting to look busy, somebody else pulling in there, and it was in fact Jimmy Bruni as Greg Franke gets closer and closer to Christophe Bouchou, and you've got to speculate that this is another Corvette that is using its tyres faster than it is planned, and there is the pit stop, and out goes Bruni, in goes Tony Vielander in the championship leading car. Clean of the screen is all they're allowed to do until the hose is disconnected. Once that hose comes off, they'll make a tyre decision. You can hear the guns working, so you know we're doing a tyre change. And in comes the number one Maserati, Bertolini, handing over to Michael Bartels, who's been stood around for several laps, but he always does, doesn't he?
Yep, and Carl Fendlinger in as well to hand over to Ryan Sharp a little further up the pit lane, and the remaining Jeff Alliance Aston Martin. Unfortunately, Yuri Janak, having had a major accident earlier in the week, has put the 36 car out of the running for this weekend. Here's the lead battle now coming up behind. Yes, it's Richard Westbrook's Porsche, isn't it? The red mirrors giving it away, and the fact that the 60 car was in the garage with a whole radiator from the look of things. But this has allowed the battle to close right up. It now is really incumbent upon the Porsche to give way and allow both cars cleanly through. But he's managed to block, unfortunately, the Celine behind. So not the best of results for Greg Franke, but it'll only be, I'm sure, a temporary blip in his pursuit of Bouchou. Bouchou at the moment holding sway, but it's only half a second at the end of the lap. These are the two protagonists we were talking about, both in the pit lane a moment ago. Now they're both back out on track, and it's as ever that magic moment has happened unseen by us, where Vitaphone have done their stuff and they've come out ahead of the Aston Martin during the pit stop sequence.
It's a funny thing, because the Jet Alliance team at the beginning of last year acknowledged that Vitaphone did something in the pits that no one else did, and they studied it, learned from it, and started doing the same thing, and their turnarounds got quicker and quicker and quicker. Yep. And it's usually, if you look at the pit lane ins and outs, it's usually only a couple of seconds, but that's all it takes when the racing is this close.
Yeah, Rob Bell in to hand over there to Andrew Cacordi. The fueling is completed, the car goes up on the air jacks to release the old rubber and put a fresh set of Michelins on.
Bouchou staying out, as we would expect. Another long run from Christophe Bouchou in the lead, do you think?
That would make a change. You wonder how much track time Xavier Marcin's actually going to get over the course of the season, don't you? But it's been a good introductory year for the young Dutch driver into FIA GT racing and the championship that SRO puts on all around Europe, and this year in Argentina as well. And this is the sort of stuff that we've got used to as the season progressed. Bartel's taking no prisoners, getting his way past what is still Jamie Davis in the Scuderia Cost car, and as the GT2 pit stops begin to take shape, Jamie Davis is back up into a more rightful place in the pecking order, but still only 7th in class behind Tony Vielander, who's now made his top stop, but 4.5 seconds away from them.
This is Simonson handing over to Philip Peter for Gigawave. Now, this car was looking fairly strong earlier on. Alan Simonson, as Graham was saying, looking like a man who knows exactly what he's doing in this car, used to the pressure and piling it on as well. Philip Peter also vastly experienced. Here we go back to the battle between Corvette and Celine. These two owe us a pit stop, remember, scything their way through the GT field there, quite ruthlessly in fact, but they are both locked in a battle, and that almost looked like a lunge from Greg Frankie from that angle as they cut through the traffic. He knows there's opportunities there to be had if he can stick close enough to Bouchou and keep his wits about him, and again he's looking for a line, and the Porsche wisely staying out of the way to let them through, and they're still nose to tail, and they are still first and second. 0.7 of a second last time. I don't think it's going to be that this time.
No, I think David Ashburn there wisely, having just got into the car, staying well out of the way. Here's the ACA Argentina Ferrari F550 Maranello, and it was, we are told, Esteban Tuero who started, so Gaston Mazzacane it is who takes the turn this week. They've had Tuero in the car throughout with a series of different Argentine co-drivers. In comes Bouchou and comes right up to the stop board, left there by the team manager, who vacates the seat as Marson climbs in. Bouchou helping to get his radio attached, will help to strap him in as well, and tyres being done at the same time. So here is your new race leader, Greg Frankie, and the Labre Competition Celine, fresh from its rebuild after that massive shunt and warm-up for Spa, and right up to the head of the leaderboard, penalty-free in terms of weight, remember.
And Christophe Bouchou giving Masson a friendly little tap on the top of the crash helmet there as he climbed into the seat, an encouraging message of good luck. And out he goes. We'll just have to wait and see at what point Frankie hands this car over to Van Voss, and it's just starting to get a bit wide at the back there, wasn't it?
Yep, just getting a little bit loose, and here's another battle in the making. Bartels and Ryan Sharp still hammer and tongs. Ryan Sharp having been passed by Bartels either in the pit lane or on the exit from it. We didn't see exactly what happened, but in traffic it's Ryan Sharp closing right up again onto the back of the Maserati, and again it's Richard Westbrook who is the unwitting block in the progress of a battle in the GT1 field, making his choice of direction known, indicating off to the left, letting the Aston Martin slide through on the inside, and behind him is the silver Aston Martin of the G2 car now in that. I beg his pardon, it's the giveaway car, isn't it? It's Thomas Enger having taken over from Stefan Mucker though in the car which I mistakenly thought we were looking at.
That is in fact the giveaway car with Philip Peter back out after a pit stop. Frankie and Nogaro have not stopped yet, and Jean-Denis Delatraz is on track in front of Xavier Masson.
Yeah, that's been a good turnaround for the 5 team, and just showing that it's not just Vitaphone who can do this bit of magic. Delatraz is out ahead, as we've seen. There is Bartels still trying to get up onto the back of Mike Hazemans, who's now taken over that car as well. So the order is Delatraz and Hazemans now running in 3rd and 4th places. So improvements made for the GMAC crews in that round of pit stops, but it's still Frankie out the front. Andy Nogaro yet to stop either of those two at the head of the field. Delatraz, Hazemans, Marson, Bartels and Sharp following that order.
Here, look, we've got 2 Corvettes now in front of Masson. We've got Delatraz and Hazeman, so there's a bit of a gap and a bit of a cushion back to this man Michael Bartels, and it's Masson who seems to be going back through the field. It'll be interesting to see what happens when he completes this lap and how the times shape up. Yep. Because obviously on his way out of the pits he's got a long lap time. But look, Michael Bartels already thinking about this move on Xavier Masson, who's cold tyres and cold to the car. But Michael Bartels, of course, reasonably fresh in the car as well, so they're in a similar position. Here's Sandy Nogaro stop, handing over to Miguel Ramos from what had become 2nd place and now won't be anymore, and it's only the race leader Greg Frankie and a couple of the GT2 cars that owe us pit stops, and then we'll see the true picture of what is occurring in this 8th round of the FIA GT Championship.
And another solid professional stop from the Vitaphone team. They really are the best drilled up and down this pit lane. We're coming up to 55 minutes completed. Won't be much longer. Oh dear, there's the GKR engineering car, the visitor to the championship, the Belgian-owned but French-crewed team down in 19th place. And Julien Canal, unfortunately, losing the car under braking.
Like that.
Back end just stepped out, and that's the result. He's parked on the grass on the outside of the corner.
That's what we saw that car do before, isn't it?
little bit of excitement there as we've seen the Vitaphone car coming under pressure from Ryan Sharp, but still nibbling away at the back of Xavier Marcin's Q-Park sponsored SRT car. Christophe Bouchou having had a sterling run out at the front of the field. It's now up to Xavier Marcin to keep that going. His car not quite up to temperature yet, though. Ryan Sharp looking to have a nibble down the outside, and is he going to be able to dip back in on the inside and make that stick? Yes, he is. Bartels has to give best for the moment, but he's got the inside line. It's side-by-side racing. Would you rather be in that battle? In the Aston, here we are, on the inside, or in Bartel's Maserati? Is he able to sweep past in front? Yes, he has. Ryan Sharp has made that pass stick for the time being, at least, and in the process, he's allowed for Philip Peter, who it is alongside Alan Simonson in the Gigawave car, to close right up as well. So this little battle involving 4 cars, all disputing 5th place.
Well, that was interesting. Michael Bartels came out wide there, but he knew it was to stop what was going to happen happening. It wasn't an attack on Bouchou at all, as into the pits comes Greg Frankie at last, handing over to Vincent Voss, and that means we have a new race leader. It's the number 5 Corvette of Jean-Denis Delatraz, and we'll have to let all the pit stops unfold, so we've got a couple of minutes before we see where Frankie comes back out onto the track, what position he slots into, whether it remains the lead. But Philip Peter locking up the tyres of the Gigawave car there in his pursuit of the man in front, Michael Bartels, who's now going to have a little calming moment with himself and get back on terms with the Aston Martin in front of him.
Yeah, and this whole battle that we've been following is only just ahead of the Corvette, the yellow Corvette. You'll see they're just making his way past, or trying to make his way past, the BMS Scuderia Italian car. That's Mike Hazelman's currently in 4th place with Xavier Marcin, scant 1.5 seconds behind at the line, but less than that now, as they've almost completed another lap and the traffic has played its part. Every time we see these concertina effects, the slightly slower cars occasionally having no option but to take the racing line through one of the tight corners here at Nogaro, and not enough width in the track to allow the GT1 cars to pass.
Frankie's back on track, and it was quite a slow pit stop, so I don't think he's going to be our race leader when this unfolds. Mike Hazelman, I think, has been the big winner out of all of this, because more importantly than anything else, he's put a bit of air between himself and Michael Bartels, and a couple of cars as well. And that's exactly what he came here to achieve.
Yep, he needs to be up at the very sharp end of the point scoring, though, in order to have a big enough cushion between the points that he will score and the points that Bartels and Bertolini will score to make a significant difference. Ryan Sharp, however, has his own battle to consider, which is to get past Xavier Marcin in that Corvette and improve on the current 4th to 5th position that he holds for himself and Carl Wendlinger.
I'll tell you what though, Graham, I think you were spot on with the tyre call about Carl Wendlinger in this car, because I think Ryan Sharp's got a nice set of new tyres, and they're looking rather good, and the car's looking a lot more aggressive than it did in the first part of the race. So I think Carl Wendlinger just did the best he could with what he'd got, and now he's handed it over in a solid position to Ryan Sharp, who now stitches up Xavier Marcin. Oh, he's on the grass, and Marcin takes it back. Ryan Sharp was very optimistic there, and I think he's going to lose a place in the Maserati, and he's going to lose one to Philip Peter as well. No, he's not, he fights it back. And the Aston Martin tucks in behind him, but Philip Peter wants past, he's on the inside.
gentle friendly nudge to remind him that he's there, having had a nudge from Bartels as well in order to let Bartels through. Ryan Sharp, having tried that overtaking manoeuvre to gain a place, has ended up losing one instead. Xavier Marcin continues in 4th place, but it's now Bartels ahead of Sharp, ahead of Peter.
Well, that unfortunately undoes everything nice we were saying about Mike Hazelman's cushion back to Michael Bartels. All he wants is to finish as high up the order as he can with Michael Bartels, as far down the order as possible, with as many cars and scoring points between them, to try and give him a chance over the last 2 rounds to have a stab at the title. And it was looking rather better just now, but now Michael Bartels in 5th place is 1 car behind and closing in on Mike Hazelman, because Marcin will be his next victim if he can manage it.
This is how close it is in the FIA GT Championship. Race after race, we see these battles going on over the entire 2 hours. They don't seem to give or ask any quarter, and yet the racing is usually fair. There's a slow-running car on the side of the track there. I wonder if that was the rejoining number 9 DKR car. We didn't get a good look at it on the way past, but this is what we are going to get a good look at. Is another battle being resumed. Michael Bartels, having got past Ryan Sharp, has now got the bit between his teeth and wants to be past Xavier Marcin as well, so he can bring the fight straight back to Mike Hazeman's and reduce the points deficit between the pair of them.
Michael Bartel's closing in on Xavier Masson, and it was Alex Davison, wasn't it, before the race, who said it's not an endurance race, it's just flat out all the way from start to finish. It's just 2 hours of sprint racing, and it's racing as well, isn't it?
Yeah, and in has come Maurizio Mediani to hand over to the long, lanky figure of young Henri Moser, the GT3 champion last year, who's rewarding this drive in GT2 for the season. They come in out of the lead of GT2, an artificial one, because of their late stop, and that will hand the lead back to the 61 Porsche, now in the hands, if you see, of Alex Davison, the Australian driver, who's just completed his race season in the Endurance Series, where he runs in second place with Mark Lieb, two strong factory drivers, but not able to stave off Ferrari in that championship any more than they've been able to in this one.
Bartels is right up behind Masson now, and it does appear to be just a question of where and when, because the Maserati again is having the benefit of tyres that are coming in now and just reaching the sweet spot after a few laps. Here's his opportunity. It's not close enough, and he knows it isn't, so he didn't even try it. Unlike Ryan Sharp, I think, who, as you say, went for it and had to have a rethink now, and he's looking at the car he was trying to overtake.
Yeah, well, I think Ryan Sharp was that little bit closer, and Marson, almost having decided that he couldn't keep ahead, then changed his mind at the last minute, chopped across the nose of the Aston Martin, leaving Ryan Sharp nowhere to go other than through the apex of the corner on the grass, and that cost him the place. However, battle is resumed. Philip Peter keeping a watching brief at the back of this little group. His place in the car wasn't certain this weekend, but he's got the place, and he's in the car, and he's showing well.
Deletraz, Ramos, Hazeman and Marson, and Vincent Voss, interestingly, our erstwhile race leader, is in 8th place, and there is, I think, a problem with that car. It had a very slow pit stop.
Yeah, as you said, it was a relatively slow stop for that team, the Labra team, normally well drilled, very professionally run by Jacques Leconte, but little time out of competition, perhaps they're a little bit ring rusty.
Well, I'm not sure, because his sector times are there or thereabouts, so at the moment the car seems to be up to speed, so it must be just the time that it lost in the pit lane. But in the meantime, the battle at the front is between Deletraz, Ramos and Hazeman in 3rd place. Look, these are... How close would you like it? Marson, Bartels, Sharp and Philip Peter, that is 4th, 5th and 6th and 7th, all on screen together, that close, and they are only a few seconds behind the leading duo. Deletraz at the moment, though, is the man who's making all the hay in what is still a gloriously sunny afternoon here, because he is 11 seconds clear at the top.
Yep, and circulating very nicely. Ramos very slowly nibbling away at that gap, but sometimes it'll be traffic that makes a difference. Sometimes it'll be just the outright speed of the cars at the head of the field. The difference in penalty weights is very little, but further down, this number 1 car is still carrying a massive 85 kilos of extra lead on board, and that's like sitting you or I alongside.
Well, you anyway. It's grown the gap at the top. It's 12 seconds now. Deletraz has in hand over Miguel Ramos. There's a car we haven't seen for a long time.
No, we're an early stopper, weren't they, in that car, and they've made their way back up to 11th place overall. They've got themselves past the Argentine Ferrari of Gaston Mazzacane, and up into 10th place as I speak, having just overcome Tony Vilander in the AF Corsa car, still 2nd in class. And while they would, I'm sure, prefer to be at the head of the field, and this is the car we're talking about, no doubt they will be happy with that. Now, is that Alex Davison running a little slowly, or is that just a figment of my imagination and a camera angle that made him look a little bit...
Let's hope it's the camera angle, because he is the GT2 leader at the moment, and behind him is Tony Vilander in the 50 car, which is perfect for Vilander and perfect for AF Corsa.
Yeah, Michael Bartels will be happy with this as well, because the car is clearly running well, the team is running well. He's within sight almost of Mike Hazelman's, but not near enough to yet have a go at getting past him, because he's first got to get past this pesky black and white Corvette. Xavier Marson bolstering the good work done by Christophe Bouchou in the first stint, and holding off the rest of the train that follows, but that is allowing Hazelman slowly to get back a bit of more of a lead over Xavier Marson. It's now up to nearly 4.5 seconds, but Hazelman needs to be at the sharp end of things in order to give himself a chance to carry this fight to the end of the season.
He's got to catch Ramos. Ramos is 5 seconds up the road from him, and he wants to put space, points and cars between himself and this man Michael Bartels, who is still having a think about Xavier Marson, isn't he?
Yes, and of course the fact that Hazelman's has got to get past Ramos is one of those that's got to be significant, because Ramos could, if he wished, hold up Hazelman's for some time, I suspect.
Still on board there with Michael Bartels as they pick their way through the GT2 traffic. Still the same order, but I think a little bit of the heat has gone out of this battle. Delatraz, Ramos, Hazelman, Masson and Bartels, then it's Ryan Sharp, then it's this man. We're riding with Philip Peter, looking at the Jet Alliance Aston Martin. Ryan Sharp had a good go at moving up a couple of positions, got it slightly wrong, a little bit of an altercation, and I think we may well have seen the best of his tyres in this stint now.
Yes, it won't have done them any favours, and the steward's having a look at that little inquiry at the moment while we carry on looking through the windscreen of Michael Bartels' Maserati at the back of the Corvette, looming larger under braking there. Bartels able to close the gap right down under braking. A little puff of smoke from the back of the car as he lifts off the accelerator, a little bit of unburnt fuel coming back through the system and closing right up now onto the rear of the Corvette. But we've seen this time and again that he can get closer and closer and closer, but not able to make the pass. However, he's sitting right in the slipstream at the moment, dives out at a much later moment. This time I think is the one. He's got the car under control. Marson can do nothing about it, has to give best, and that's the benefit of staying in the strip lane that little bit longer.
Well, he was closer, wasn't he? And Masson did all he could, but there it is, done and dusted. And Michael Bartels now has Mike Hazelman in his sight, because there is now nothing between him and Hazelman. And this pair will also be thinking, where can we get past Xavier Masson? Because the Maserati can do it, it must be our turn next. Ryan Sharp towing up towards the back of it now.
Yeah, be interesting to see how much pace Bartels can gain now, having cleared there's a replay from inside Bartels' car, seeing how easy it was, relatively speaking, to dive down the inside there at the last minute. Maybe it was Marson who lost the plot slightly, not taking the defensive line, believing that he could stay ahead whatever Bartels had in the locker, but no.
Yes, the trick there when you're being pressured into that turn at the end of the aerodrome straight is to be not quite a car's width down from the white line, isn't it? So you've covered both options and you have taken your line. And this is getting very serious, isn't it? Philip Peter just touching the back end of Ryan Sharp's Aston Martin there and dropping back afterwards.
Yeah, Ryan Sharp had more than a couple of cars nibbling at the back of his Aston. Thankfully, at the moment, it hasn't cost him anything, but this is going to cost him maybe. Is it side by side? No, they can't do it. Round the outside
watch
is
now.
not the way to do it. Sharp has managed to keep the power down, and we saw that the Aston was very good through these long corners, just missing out on overall top speed on that long back straight to the muscle cars and the V12 Maseratis, but nonetheless, huge speed to be carried through the corners, and that is what wears the tyres.
So it's Aston Martin plays Aston Martin here, and Philip Peter getting a little bit creative there, and I think he tried to sell Ryan Sharp a little bit of a dummy and go for the line on the next corner. Didn't happen. Tried it again, didn't happen, but he is clearly the aggressive one of the two at the moment, and clearly got a little bit more speed in the number 10 Aston Martin at the moment on these 7 tyres than has Ryan Sharp in the 33 car. But of course, we're looking at 48 minutes remaining on our clock, which means we've got to start thinking about another set of pit stops, driver changes and all the rest of it. So it may well be that the tyres are just running out a bit and the drivers are thinking, and they'll definitely be worn out if you keep doing things like that. The drivers will start thinking about their pit stops that will be coming up any minute. You know Christophe Bouchou is pacing up and down, don't you, in the pit lane?
Absolutely, just dying to get his hands back on the wheel of that car.
Well, he's still got a bit of a gap there, Xavier Masson, while the two Aston Martins wrangle it out between themselves. Somewhere on this racetrack is Jean-Denis Delatraz in the number 5 Corvette. He is the race leader, and he is ahead of Miguel Ramos in the number 2 Maserati in 2nd place. Mike Hazeman is in 3rd place, Bartel's 4th, and Xavier Masson here is in 5th place. And the man who we thought would be pacing up and down is in fact talking with Haley.
Christophe, you certainly put in a fantastic stint. Are you happy with the performance?
Yes, I'm very happy. The car is very well balanced and the setup was good lap after lap. Even when I finish, I lost totally the traction and I can overtake Fassler with the same car than me, but the Saline was really quick. I was happy to stop.
Good luck, Christophe. Thank you.
Don't hear him say that very often, do you? I was happy to stop. But the Saline that he was racing with is still mired in 8th place. It's back on the pace in the 126s, as quick as it ever was, but obviously the problems it had in pit lane have cost it dearly, because that was the race leader, and that was for some time quite the raciest looking car on the track. Let's see if we can find out from Greg Franke exactly what's been going on in the pit stop.
Greg, there's certainly still a long way to go, but it almost looks like it's your weekend this weekend.
Yeah, the first position, you have a good stint. For the start, in the 2nd position, the Fassler takes it first. And you pass the GT2, Bouchou passed me, and after me I pass Fassler, and Bouchou I go to the box, and I try to push. And the team have the problem for the refuel and lost 45 seconds in the box. And now I try to push a lot.
Thank you, Greg.
So a refueling problem, the route of the drop of 8 places, or 7 places for the number 7 Saline. It was the race leader, it's now in 8th place. Jean-Denis Delatraz is the race leader after 50 laps. The number 4 car of Bert Longin in the pits, and they're all looking slightly more concerned than I would like them to look.
Yes, a second stop for the car already, having handed over from Kumpen to Longin. And yesterday when I was talking to Bert, he said, yeah, we've got a lot of speed back in the car now, but he said it still feels fragile. Whenever we get in the car, you fear that it might break at any point, and it looks as though that might be the end of their day. I hope we are being premature, but it just had that feel about it.
Yes, all the body language there said retirement, didn't it? And here is the number 3 car, Masson, with Sharp, and then Philip Peter we're riding with now behind Philip Peter again, closing up on the tail end of the Aston Martin in front of him and looking for an opportunity to get past Ryan Sharp. 45 minutes on the clock. Christophe Bouchou didn't look as if it was his time to get into the number 3 car, but very soon this is going to be a pit stop bonanza, because we have only 4 cars that have stopped, 5 cars that have stopped twice. Everybody else has got to stop again.
Miguel Ramos putting in another quick lap in the number 2 Maserati, and reducing again the deficit between himself and Jean-Denis Delatraz at head of the field. The 2 yellow Corvettes of the Mike Hazeman's team, the Phoenix Carsport racing team, have sandwiched the Maserati, but at the moment there's an 8-second gap between 1st and 2nd, and then again between 2nd and 3rd, and it's then Bartels and Marson with the closing gap between the 2 Astons behind Marson, and the 2 are then battling each other, as we've been watching lap after lap after lap, and Philip Peter still not able to find a way past a very determined Ryan Sharp.
Alex Davison continues to lead GT2. It's Tony Verlander behind him in what is, I think, a championship winning second place. And I say championship winning because Malucelli in the 77 car is almost out of the point, isn't he? Where are we? 4, 5, 6. He's looking very, very ropey indeed at the moment. And that was the championship battle here. And I think that will settle the driver's title, if not the team's title, because where is Biaggi? He's a couple of places further back, isn't he?
Yes, Biaggi is just lost a place, in fact, to Andrea Piccini. And in the CR Scuderia car that she shares with Tim Mullen this weekend, Chris Niarchos off on business duty. And so Andrea Piccini, who joined the team for Spa, makes a welcome return to the second seat in the 55 car. They're now up into third place, but still it's Alex Davison sharing with Richard Westbrook for the first time in FIA GTs, who hold sway in the GT2 field. Up at the sharp end, everything is staying pretty constant up at the sharp end. There's about 8 seconds gap between first and second, second to third remaining the same. And it's still those two Aston Martins who are providing the real on-track action at the head of the field in GT1.
And there is the class of lead which Delatraz has. He's turned in at the hairpin while Miguel Ramos is just coming out onto the longest straight on the circuit, the Aerodrome straight. Here comes third place. This is Mike Hazeman, and he's another 8 seconds further back, and behind him by some 4.5 seconds is Michael Bartels, which is pretty good for Bartels and Bertolini, but actually not so hot for Hazeman and Golin, is it?
No, but they've still got another round of pit stops to go. They've still got the possibility of something going horribly wrong in one of those stops, which can happen. These cars get very hot, and hot engines don't like being stopped and restarted, and you have to turn the engine off during your pit stop.
Well, we say 42 minutes exactly now remaining in this race. This is Bartels in what will not win him the championship here this weekend, but will certainly put it out of reach of all but the most theoretical last-minute smash and grab raids.
Yeah, you'd need a degree in mathematics to really make it work, wouldn't you?
Or you'd have to be
and optimism.
Paul, what's his name? Mr. Daniels, yes. That's
Paul.
magic.
Now that's magic.
Yeah. Well done, Graham.
Won't happen again, I promise.
You've got a career ahead of you, I can see. But yes, Michael Bartels can't win it, I don't think, from this position, but I think everyone else has pretty much lost it.
This man, Alex Davison, will be enjoying his first foray into the ranks of the FIA GT Championship, and it may not be endurance racing, Alex, but it's racing nonetheless, and up at the sharp end of things is where he likes to be, and alongside Richard Westbrook, the pair of them have shown their huge experience in Porsche Carrera Cup racing and other disciplines of Porsche racing, as well as here in the GT2 category. That's their pursuer, Tony Vilander, looking for the title this weekend if they can possibly secure it.
Well, he can from here, I believe. He's 7 seconds or so behind Davison, as he has been for the last few laps, in fact. So obviously he's quite content with where he is. And Andrea Piccini, since he took over the 55 car, they came out from their pit stop a little bit down the field, but he has fought his way back up again, as indeed we saw Tim Mullen do with that car earlier on. So quite clearly the CR Scuderia Ferrari is bang on it at the moment. There is Andrea Piccini, and as you can see, one pit stop, he's got to stay in the car and then hand it over to Tim Mullen. And again, we have no clear idea of how they're running their strategy in GT1 or GT2 at the moment, but we think that pit stops are imminent because there are only 40 minutes remaining.
Yeah, Andrea Piccini, let's not forget, an immensely talented driver. Just missed out on the merry-go-round of driver signatures at the start of this season, and because he's a man who should be sitting in a full-time race seat, just drifting a little bit wide there. Thomas Biaggi, you can see Andrew Coccodi tucked up behind him now in the second CR Scuderia car, and the two of the CR cars now being bracketed around Thomas Biaggi's number 51 car, with which we're on board. Ahead of them is Vilander, of course, Biaggi's teammate.
Rob Bell, of course, was in the 56 car before and had a little, I think, coming together with Christian Montanari when he was in the driving seat of this one, and we're now about to see a possible replay of that as Andrew Coccodi comes up behind it. Otherwise, I'm sure that the Fittipaldi and Belcar would be a little bit further up the leaderboard. I'm certain that neither of them are very keen on following Tim Mullen and Andrea Pacini around.
No, it'd be interesting to see how deep into this race the teams elect to go before making their second mandatory stops. A few teams have already done that, but not many.
The thing is, it's not like other forms of racing where the fuel load dictates exactly how far you can go. There have to be 2 pit stops, and the cars can go, in some cases, a bit more than an hour on their 100 litres of fuel.
Oh yes, certainly.
And so they can stop more or less where they choose up to an hour. And as we saw in the first round of pit stops, a lot of people stopped a lot earlier than an hour into the race, which gives them the option of stopping anywhere in the next hour, more or less, as well. So it's very difficult to predict without being told exactly who's going to stop where and when. And of course that's coloured by the fact that the team managers will be on the pit wall. Nigel Stepney, for example, is on the pit wall now, watching the number 10 Aston Martin, and they'll be making decisions about their next pit stop, and it might change what was already a fairly tight strategy.
The 3 cars we're looking at in GT1 here are the 3 that are all battling over 5th place. Xavier Marston still holds that 5th place, but increasing pressure from Ryan Sharp and Philip Peter with the Aston Martins behind as the Marston Corvette comes up behind the 95 Advanced Engineering Ferrari. This is a battle that will be rejoined.
Yes, it's been going on for quite a while, and it's going to carry on for quite a while. Into the pits now comes the, well, I was going to say race leader, because it isn't now, it's in the pit lane, and Miguel Ramos is the new race leader, but Marcel Fassler gets back in the driving seat, and I suspect that this car will be a little bit quicker in his hands than it was with Jean-Denis Delatraz, but Delatraz has done such a good job this year, hasn't he?
Yeah, he really has. He's stepped up his pace and his fitness, and over the season the results have started to come. Here is Miguel Ramos now in the lead, coming to put a lap on the Argentine ACA Racing 550 Maranello. Still nice to see the Ferrari out there. The old lady getting a bit long in the tooth, however, and not able to maintain the pace of the later generation GT1 cars.
So it is the Corvettes which blink first. The G-Mac team have done the first of the second stops in the top 16 cars. There are a few stoppers further down the leaderboard, but our top 16, only one has got 2 pit stops under its belt now, and that is the number 5 Corvette. Everybody else will now be making their judgment call as well. And I didn't see with Fassler whether he had new tyres or not.
No, I think not. I think that car will have come out on the same rubber.
And that will save a little bit of time. It's a 30-second drive-through here if you don't stop from pit in to pit out, and the length of time you stop is dictated by the amount of fuel you put in, obviously, and then whether or not you change the tyres, because you can't do that while you are fueling. You have to wait for the fueling to stop, so it's always an additional time penalty. Not changing your tyres at a pit stop can save you 15-20 seconds, and you have to race an awful long way very hard to get that kind of advantage.
Finally, the battle we've been looking at for lap after lap after lap has been defused by Ryan Sharp, bringing the Jet Alliance version number 33 of the Aston Martin into his pit stop to hand back to Carl Wendlinger, while Philip Peter continues for another lap before, at least another lap before he hands back to the Dane Alan Simonson.
No tyres here.
No, good steady stop, having got the flat-spotted ex-qualifying tyres off the car to hand Ryan Sharp a fair set. That little foray down the inside onto the grass didn't seem to damage the tyres that Wendlinger is now going to take to the finish.
So Wendlinger and Fassler are the only 2 in the top 15 or so who have made their second stop. We're on board with Philip Peter in the number 10 Aston Martin. He's currently in 5th place. And of course he and everybody in front of him and a few behind him owe us a pit stop, and they'll be making those in the next few minutes. Bit of an unfortunate outing in Brno for the Gigawave team, because in actual fact it only lasted about 500 yards, didn't it? Into the pit lane comes Philip Peter, though, for his second stop. Give the car back to Alan Simonson on the pit lane, speed limiter there. Simonson's waiting. The car was full of promise in Brno on a circuit which I think it suited and which the drivers were happy with. And I think Gigawave were really denied a good result, because remember, this team new to the series this year, Gigawave, but they have shown up remarkably well. Third at Silverstone, third at Monza, third in the 24 hours of Spa.
Yeah, and on screen we've got Fabio Bovini on a long drive to the flag. Now as straight out again goes Simonson. The job of refueling the car having been completed in as little time as it takes. No tyres again on that car. They're straight back in business, and they're out ahead of the 33 car.
Interesting, 30 minutes ahead of us then. One of the things we do know about this circuit, everybody's agreed on, it's abrasive, it's hard on tyres, and yet they've chosen to double stint them simply because you can save a whole bunch of time by doing that, and hopefully it'll turn out to be a bigger saving than the time you would lose on a set of tyres that's being chewed to the ragged edge at the end.
Yes, it's just a hard circuit, isn't it? Because of the long high-speed corners here, a lot of energy going through the tyres, just trying to maintain the grip, and they're a little bit of the legacy of that wear on the tyres. The car just getting squirrely under braking the front end, trying to break away, at managing to get the car turned in as Wendlinger has renewed his battle on track with the Gigawave Aston Martin that you'll see disappearing out of shot now.
Yes, Carl Wendlinger, I think, just finding out exactly how good those tyres are, or perhaps more pertinently, how bad they are.
Yes, Esteban Tuero getting back in for his final stint aboard the 37 550 Maranello. Gaston Mazzucani finished his work for the day by celebrating by going a little bit wide before his pit stop.
No harm done there.
Happily.
And they will go for a tyre change after that little excursion, and I think they probably a wise call, because they're not really in the running at the front, and so tyres aren't going to change their position in GT1 by a great amount. It doesn't start as quickly as it could have done.
No, it's good to see them in the championship though, and just making the point that Argentina is our final destination this season for the first time,
and also making the point that we will be heading towards a world championship in a couple of years' time, and Argentina the first step on what is going to be a long road. Now, this could be a significant pit stop for GT2, couldn't it?
Yes, Alex Davison, the lanky Australian, getting out of the car and handing over to Richard Westbrook, the Brit. That means that in the lead of the class at the moment goes Tony Vilander, and this car, the AF Corsa, number 50, the championship leaders at the moment, and they're looking to sew things up, at least in the Drivers' Championship this afternoon if they possibly can, as long as they finish ahead, which it looks as though they will, of Matteo Malucelli's number 77 BMS Scuderia Italia car. Their job is done.
Well, it's looking fairly... bear in mind that we came here to this race last year saying pretty much the same thing about AF Corsa, and it ended up being towed away on the end of a rope and had to wait until the next round. So
and teammates filled in behind and took the victory. So out has gone the number 3 Q Park sponsored Corvette of SRT Racing, back in the hands of veteran Christophe Bouchou at a track that he loved very much, as in has come the Aston Martin.
It was splat in the middle of GT2, which is pretty much what we expected, wasn't it?
And this is exactly what Aston Martin Racing were hoping for this afternoon. A good, long, solid run just to establish where their car is on performance. It's the first time this GT2 version of the Vantage has been out on race tyres since last November, George Howard Chappell was telling me, and they must be delighted with the way the car is run.
Pit stop time for the number 6 Corvette, and here it is. Hazeman brings it in. A bit of a struggle getting the door open for Mike Hazeman to make way for Fabrizio Gollin. They're going for minimum time at rest in the pit lane. There are no tyres out there. Gollin strapping him in will be telling him how the tyres felt. But as we saw with Carl Wendlinger being told and finding out are different things, aren't they?
And responding immediately, Vitophone brought Michael Bartels in, and Bartels, I think, got out ahead there, didn't he? Again, it looks as though Vitophone have woven their magic in the pit stop window, and it looks as though Bartels has snuck ahead of, and indeed he has, of Mike Hazelman's and Fabrizio Golin during that. So at the moment we're looking at a 1-2 for Vitophone, although Ramos has yet to come back in to hand over to Alexandra Nogaro for the final session.
How do they do that? With no tyre change to worry about, how do they do that?
Quicker driver changes.
They do practice. You'll see them doing it a lot in the pit lane, and I'm sure they do it a lot in secret where no one can see them. But they spend a lot of time with a stopwatch and measure every facet of the stop. Here comes the second car, and there is the driver change. You've still got to do the seatbelts, all those physical things. It may just be that it's an easier access in the Maserati, and then the Corvette's just a little bit tighter with the roll cage, hard to get in and out. It's all happening now, isn't it?
That's perfect. That's exactly how it should be. The refueling hose is coming off the minute the driver's door is slammed. Out goes the number 50 car of Tony Vielander, having handed back to his teammate Jimmy Bruni, who won, let's remember, this GT2 race last season, and 33 still in the hands of Carl Wendlinger now, and back up to speed after their second stop. Everything is just starting to settle down. Another lap on the timing and scoring, we should be knowing exactly who is where as the 7th car has come in for its second stop now.
Let's see how long that one takes. They said, didn't they, that it was a refueling problem, and if the rig is snagging, then it could well be another difficult stop for them. So we'll keep an eye on that one. But here's the battle for the lead with Fassler and Nogaro, and at the moment it's Fassler, as you can see in the Corvette, with Sandy Nogaro behind him. It was the other way around last time they went across the start-finish line, but at the moment it's Corvette leads Maserati. Behind that is the other Maserati of Michael Bartels, and behind that, in the wrong place from their championship point of view, Fabrizio Golin is 4th, but only by about 1.5 seconds.
Andrea Piccini in GT2 has brought the car in from the lead to make his second stop. Biaggi in as well, and so everything's going to start to unwind in that category as well. But this is the battle for the lead. Marcel Fassler at the moment in the head of the queue. Then it's 2 Maseratis behind, because Nogaro now has Bartels coming up, but not Bartels, sorry, Bertolini back in the car and catching up as well, and they in turn are ahead of Fabrizio Golin, which is exactly where they wanted to be.
2 pit stops, and they've gone from something like 8th and 9th to 2nd and 3rd, and that's where they've done it, there's no doubt about it. But they do have a problem in the shape of Mike Hazelman, who is closing in on the tail end of the number 1 car at the moment. Let's see from Miguel Ramos in pit lane, if we can, exactly how they've achieved this little miracle again.
Miguel, how important is it for you to take a podium win this weekend?
I don't know, it's a long race. I hope we can get a podium. I think we are pushing, really. The conditions are really bad, very slippery, the track. But I think the others have more problems than us, so it's like rallying, so it's quite fun, but really tiring. And I think we can really catch a podium, I hope so.
After where you started on the grid, how did you fight your way to where you finished?
Well, now in my stint, I don't know, I think it went well. I was fast. I think I was lucky without a lot of traffic. In the end I had some traffic, so I was losing time. That's why they called me, because I was losing time overtaking GT2. But I feel the car is great, and I think the car up to the end will be the most competitive car there, if it doesn't happen anything.
Thank you, Miguel.
Well, he seems very confident about that, doesn't he, Miguel Ramos? And he obviously has been working hard, hasn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. The ideal plan here now would be for the Andrea Bertolini to come on to the back of Sandy Nogaro, for Nogaro to gently step to one side.
To make a small driving error.
Yes, because there are no team orders, of course, in this championship, and there are no team orders anywhere in the GT2 either, where we see that although there are pit stops still to be made, at the moment the order is Kirkcaldy ahead of Moser, ahead of Bruni, ahead of Westbrook, and a little bit of that battling you can see on screen right now as they're all being passed and lapped by Zandy Nogaro, who hasn't yet got himself back onto terms with Marcel Fessler, having been separated by these GT2 cars.
Fessler leads it from Nogaro, Bertolini, Golin and Simonsen. And so that's first, second, third and fourth. Simonsen has taken over the Gigawave car in fifth place and is about 12 seconds away from Fabrizio Golin as these GT2 pit stops you were talking about, Graham, start to take place.
That's Andrew Kirkcaldy coming in for his final hand back to Rob Bell.
Team manager, car 3, report to the race director, it says at the bottom of my screen, and I don't know what that's about.
No, didn't see anything out of order.
That's Christophe Bouchou in 7th place. Xavier Masson slipped back to the field as we saw, and they're now in 7th and obviously in some kind of difficulty. That Aston Martin. That Aston Martin is, I'm looking for it on the timing, oh, there it is, 18th place, Stefan Booker's at the wheel, and still slap in the middle of GT2. Everything going pretty much according to plan for them. What they really needed, as you say, Graham, was a long run and lots of data, wasn't it?
Yeah, and Jimmy Bruni has made his way up past the Porsche of Richard Westbrook and into what will, I think, become the lead of GT2, because Kirkcaldy has just been into the pits and was ahead. Henri Moser has yet to make his second stop to hand back to his new teammate for the weekend, Maurizio Mediani. So Jimmy Bruni looks to be on course for a win in the GT2 category this afternoon, which will make it back-to-backs for him.
Yes. GT2, I think we are going to see the driver's title go this afternoon to AF Corsa and the crew of the number 50 car. I don't think that Bertolini and Bartels, they might just be in a suitable position to take the title as well. Their margin at the moment, I believe, is 11 points, and they are a couple of points ahead of Hazeman, and that means that they will have 2 rounds, and I think it'll still have to go to the next round, won't it?
It will. A little bit of exuberance there from Henri Moser at the head of the GT2 pack at the moment, with his second stop still to come, just locking up a wheel as we're back on board with Jimmy Bruni. Now, Richard Westbrook is not a million miles behind here, but Bruni coming up to have a look at the Aston Martin and to make his way past that. We're on board again, just looking down the inside, down through that sequential gearbox. The Aston, I think, will stay wide. Yes, he will. Stefan Booker realising that he's got to do that, and on board with Stefan Booker now, not wanting to get in the way of the regular championship contenders.
That sounds a bit beastly, that Aston, doesn't it? That was nice.
It's going to be fun when they're playing full time and for real, isn't it?
Yes, certainly is. Just looking at the championship points while that was occurring, and I think Bruni and Verlander have got this nicely wrapped up, because the car they're most concerned about is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 places down, and not going to score enough points to keep the Drivers' Championship alive any longer. Bartels and Bertolini do in fact have 11 points over Hazeman and Golin, and at the moment that won't give them a firm title this afternoon.
No, not unless some misfortune befalls either of the Corvettes, I think, because Fessler is in still a lead that he looks to be able to maintain over Zandy Nogaro of a second and a bit. But Golin is closing up slightly under the constraints of traffic. But this man is a man who looks to have everything going his way.
So just being passed by the GT1 and Maserati, but this is the champion-elect, I can't help thinking, Jimmy Bruni, and so is his teammate Tony Verlander, who's with Haley in the pit lane.
Tony, you're 20 minutes from potentially taking the championship. How do you feel?
Last year we didn't finish the race because of the technical problem. So let's finish the race and wait when the minutes are zero. So at the moment it's looking good. I think Jimmy is controlling the pace, and we just want to finish the race in front of Malucelli and Ruberti.
Thank you, Tony.
So pretty much exactly as we expect. They've only got one car to beat, but they're not going to count any chickens before the tow ropes are finally stashed away at the end of the race.
No, absolutely. Having said how well the Aston Martin was going, Stefan Muckers off camera had a little moment, but managed to rejoin after a spin. Here is the sight through the windscreen of Christian Montanari at the back of the 55 CR Scuderia car. Tim Mullen still now back at the wheel, having got the car back from Andrea Boccini. He in turn is having a good look at the back of Richard Westbrook. These three cars covered by less than half a second. There is nothing like a battle that's over at GT2 until the checker falls. Tony Villander knows that.
I'm slightly concerned about the Porsche though, Grant, because I keep seeing little puffs of smoke from there. And he clipped a marker post on the last lap as well, so it could just be a bit of bodywork rubbing on the tyre, and you can see it flapping in the breeze, I think, on the right hand side of the rear, and you can see the smoke haze as well, yes, it has had a little tap, and hopefully whatever it is will just get rubbed off, and it'll be no more trouble. That's Thomas Biaggi, who's watching this race from the pit lane now. Where is Christian Montanari? There he is in fifth place in GT2, which is they've had a low-key outing, those two, haven't they?
Yes, they have rather, and unusually so, as we see, courtesy of MST, a little announcement that Christophe Bouchou has been awarded a drive-through penalty. We saw notice to the effect that the stewards were asking to see the team manager. It looks as though they've done something in their pit stop to incur the wrath of the stewards, and that's going to be the result, which isn't what Bouchou wanted, because he was desperately keen to do here at his only FIA GT race in his homeland.
Yes, absolutely right. Bouchou, I wonder if that might just be a little bit of over exuberance on his part. And speaking of exuberance, how exuberant would Tony Nogaro be if he could make this pass on Marcel Fassler for the race lead? This is the Aerodrome Straight. This is the place where overtaking traditionally happens here. On the brakes in the last few metres, not close enough, not going to happen. But Marcel Fassler looking very much like a man under pressure. Now we know both of these cars elected to run the last part of the race on the same set of tyres, and as you can see, Marcel Fassler just couldn't hold him off. Because I suspect that Maserati is always kinder to its tyres and has a lot more grip, and you can see that Sandy Nogaro was easily able to turn inside him there.
Yep, absolutely, and we're getting the news that Christophe Bouchou just served that penalty straight away. As soon as it was offered, he took the car in through pit lane and has done what he had to.
But further to the Aston Martin story, look, incident between 61 and 164 under investigation. Now, we know that the Aston Martin had a little spin and continued, and we know that he was trying to keep out of everybody's way. So I think perhaps Stefan Mucker might have tried a bit too hard to keep out of someone's way, and that's the problem, isn't it? When you do something that isn't expected, that's when the problems arise. And so I think they may just have had a little tap. Speculation, I'm afraid, but it's an educated guess.
Yeah, Henri Moser still heads the GT2 pack, but still has his second stop to make, and he's less than 10 seconds ahead of Jimmy Brumley. Here is the real battle, though, that we were looking at earlier. The three cars nose to tail for what is currently the final podium step, but it could well translate into second and third. Just drifting a little bit wide there, the Porsche. That allows Tim Mullen a glance of the bit of track that he wants to occupy, but he can't get it done. The Ferrari has to throw the anchors on as well to get through this twisty part of the circuit. It opens out again now, and they're off down the straight, and here is the Porsche stretching its legs. The Ferraris, though, maintaining close contact. Tim Mullen just letting Richard Westbrook see the glaring headlights in his mirror, showing as much of the car as he dare. Little lock up there from the Porsche again, and that allows both of the Ferraris to come up nose to tail. The three of them pushing each other round, and it's the Porsche that really is suffering at the moment. Thomas Biaggi in the pit lane watching all this going on, while Christian Montanari is trying to find a way past Tim Mullen. Tim Mullen is desperate to get his way past the Porsche, because he knows that as long as he's mired up behind him and locks up in the process, that he is at risk from being passed by the AF Corsa car.
Henri Moser is our GT2 leader, but he owes us a pit stop. So it's Bruni Westbrook here in second place after a little tap with a trackside marker, still trailing a bit of smoke. Then Tim Mullen, and then the man we're driving with here, Christian Montanari. And you can see the 33 car in the background. Carl Wendlinger is in sixth place and coming up to lap this little group, and that might well affect the outcome of their battle. We've seen that a couple of times, that as faster cars catch slower cars, positions change in both groups sometimes.
Yeah, and up into contention again for a podium spot has come Rob Bell, having taken over from Andrew Kikordi. He's right behind the car that we're on board with now. Tim Mullen doing everything he knows to try and find a way past Richard Westbrook, but the Porsche driver ahead is immensely experienced. He knows how to make a Porsche as wide as he can. He's not doing anything illegal. He's maintaining the racing line. Now we've got this Jet Alliance Aston Martin coming in to try and spoil the fun and break up the party, and he'll make his way past at least one, perhaps two of the GT2 cars before tipping the car into that corner.
Rob Bell had a little look there, didn't he? Thought I could tag on the back of that if I'm lucky, but he was just unlucky, and Wendlinger's gone. So that's his opportunity missed, and he'll have to do it another way. But Wendlinger now in the middle of the pack here.
Terrific racing all the way through this 2-hour event, which has flown by. We're less than 15 minutes to run, and still the battles are raging all the way through the field. The gap at the head has now stretched out to almost 3 seconds, and in a row over Michael Fessler. It's an hour or more since we've seen a gap that big at the front of the field. Fabrizio Gollin is less than a second behind Bertolini, but Bertolini importantly is in front, and that will bolster their championship position, but not secure it at the end of this afternoon's race.
Wendlinger's just poked his Aston Martin between Westbrook and the Ferrari, and given Richard Westbrook a little bit of a rest, and Tim Mullen an opportunity to perhaps try what Rob Bell was thinking about, tag on the back of the Aston Martin when it goes past, although I think it's going to happen on sheer power on the back straight, and I'm not sure that will give Tim Mullen as much opportunity as it might have done if Wendlinger had dived past him in one of these little tight turns.
Richard Westbrook just looking a little bit ragged in the Porsche there, just running a little bit wide, and in his attempt to maintain as much pace as he can in the car. The Aston, though, already has made its way past under acceleration down this long straight, tips into the right-hander. The Porsche follows with that little bit of flapping bodywork, not helping. Thomas Biaggi is fascinated by all of this. There's a lot of excitement in these garages. When you're not in the car, you're almost as desperate as when you are. And Tim Mullen right back up, straight away back onto the tail of Richard Westbrook's Porsche, which is looking as though he's not going to be able to hold them off forever. Tim Mullen having a look down the other side this time, trying to sell Richard Westbrook a dummy. I don't think he's going to fall for it, but eventually he may have to give best just on pace. The Ferrari seems to have the legs in this final section of the race.
Tim Mullen's got to get this done very quickly now, hasn't he? Because right behind him, he's got that AF Corsa car, which is so anxious to get past. And if Mullen doesn't get past Westbrook, then he is going to find himself snapped up by his championship rival. Or this car, and look at it, just having a think there, Montanari at the inside there. You can see Thomas Biaggi in the pit lane on tenterhooks because he can almost feel the steering wheel in his grasp, can't he, while he's watching. And Tim Mullen is really in the worst possible position of this trio. Westbrook's driving as defensively as he can for position, and he's got 11 minutes to go. Mullen's got to look in his mirror, and he's they've both lost out.
Everybody comes. Rob Bell having a look. He looks as though he might have made up that place on Thomas Biaggi simply because Westbrook and Mullen got tangled up nose to bumper on the last corner. That's allowed, and Biaggi doesn't like that one little bit. Rob Bell making best of that little battle and showing Tim Mullen that he's there now, and he'd like to be passed as well. But in the meantime, Montanari hasn't given up, has he?
No, absolutely not. But that was exactly the thing we were talking about, except it went the other way. I thought Tim Mullen was going to get snapped up by Montanari, but instead it was Rob Bell who made the running in that little group. And it's still because they're stuck behind the Porsche of Richard Westbrook and they can't get past. Here comes Rob Bell now from the right of your picture. Watch this Ferrari come surging through and think, oh look, big bit of empty track there, I'll have that. Whoosh.
Yeah.
And 2 for 1 round the outside.
and that came about because Tim Mullen was so much quicker through the corner. He really came up onto the back of Richard Westbrook's Porsche. The Porsche didn't have the pace that Mullen had out of the corner. Mullen had to anchor up a little bit to give Westbrook room to at least drive the car, and Bell was able to make his way past as Montanari wondered what on earth was going to happen.
Can you speak Italian at all?
Not yet.
Because I just wondered what Tom Piatti was saying in that shot, because I don't think he was very pleased, as you say. That wasn't the outcome that he was hoping for from that situation. For the last couple of laps, it had looked very much as though, as we suspected, Montanari was going to have a go. But in actual fact, he's got eaten up by Rob Bell, and it's still Westbrook, though, holding on to that position from a Ferrari, which is quite clearly a lot quicker than the Porsche, and will just zoom off into the distance as soon as it gets past. He's tracking him down the straight, comes out on the outside. Now this is not the way to do it. Westbrook's got track position. He moves over to confirm ownership, and they touch nose to tail all the way through the slow hairpin. But Richard Westbrook very much in control of the situation. He's going to be very difficult to pass, isn't he?
I'd hate to say Tim Mullen's blood pressure at the moment it's out through the roof, because he will be so frustrated. He knows that higher step on the podium is his for the taking, if only he can find a way past. In the meantime, up into the equation again has come the number 7 Laura Celine. It hasn't recovered from its slow pit stop first time through. Greg Franke's back at the wheel, but they're in 7th place. They're still behind the Aston Martin of Carl Bendlinger, and Alan Simonson it is who's the best place of the Astons, behind the battling pairs of Maseratis and Corvettes up at the real top of the field.
So the Celine's going to make its way through, and what will they make of this? And unfortunately Montanari can't go with him as he begins to pick off the GT2 cars one by one. Westbrook still at the head of the parade, and driving out of his skin in that Porsche to stay ahead of Tim Mullen. And as you say, Tim Mullen must be at boiling point, because that car is quicker, isn't it? Definitely that Ferrari is quicker than the Porsche, and given a clear piece of track he could move ahead, and they're carrying the fight forward now, and in front of them is Jimmy Bruni, and he's only 1.7 seconds in front of them. So now this is looking like a battle for the lead. Henri Moser actually heads GT2, but he's got to make a pit stop, and Westbrook, that is the perfect position there. That's exactly what we were talking about. That is the widest you can be. He's run a little bit wider through the hairpin, but under extreme pressure Richard Westbrook keeps his cool and keeps his head, and there is nothing Tim Mullen could do. He didn't give him any room on either side. The Ferrari's got to be much faster coming up to that corner in order to stitch up Richard Westbrook, and instead it's the Celine making its way through. Montanari had a little jiggle at the back, but he couldn't do anything about it.
Finally, Tim Mullen has to give way to the Celine behind. He hung on for another corner just to try and get it going, to try and keep his pressure on Richard Westbrook, but he's had to give best at the moment. That gives Richard Westbrook a precious breathing point for the moment, but only for the moment, because he in turn is going to have to let the Celine by. There he goes. That gives Tim Mullen a chance to close back up onto the bumper again, and the whole thing resumes while Henri Moser still pegs out at the head of the field of GT2, but still owes us that final stop that he can't avoid, even though there are only 6.5 minutes left.
Well, Montanari still agitated at the back end of this. That might be that Celine passing might actually help Tim Mullen, because it might force him to take a bit of a run at Richard Westbrook rather than be stuck behind him. No, he's closed right up again. He's underneath the rear wing of the Porsche, moving from side to side, looking for his opportunity. And the number 1 Maserati's got a puncture. Bertolini in trouble there, and he'll be in the pit lane with that left rear puncture, and that means that Mike Hazeman and Fabrizio Collin can start to smile.
Yeah, and they can, because if they're only half a second behind Marcel Fessler, and you kind of figure that pair of places should swap. Here we'll see the quickest wheel change that you can imagine between the two, just having to reach for the air gun there. Off comes the old tyre, in comes the new. There is the Maserati just drifting wide, and maybe that was as a result of the tyre going down as it came into the corner, pitching him wide. But the beneficiaries, of course, are the Corvettes. Fessler was already ahead of Bertolini. Golin has now taken the place as well, and Bertolini has been shuffled down the order.
Well, he's been dropping down as he's been stationary in pit lane. It was a fast change. but it does mean that there's a little bit of a championship reshuffle, and that will keep the GT1 battle alive a little bit longer than it would have been otherwise. It wasn't going to be settled here, and now the advantage that Bartels was going to gain has gone.
And already the change has taken place, because the car on screen is the 6 car ahead of the 5, so Golin has made his way past Marcel Fessler. He's up into 2nd place in the race. Not much.
Marcel Fessler missed a shift.
Oh, well, possibly, yes. You never know, these things happen.
Although they've had some very undisciplined moments, this lot, haven't they? The Corvettes have had some, I think back to Bucharest, they've had some lurid times between them when they should have known better and should have behaved better.
Yeah, absolutely so. But Sandy Nogaro it is who still heads the field, but Golin now less than 6 seconds behind, but only 4.5 minutes remain. This is the battle we were looking for before, and we're back on it. Tim Mullen still desperate to make his way past Richard Westbrook's Porsche. Richard Westbrook knows that this is the best chance that Porsche have had in a few rounds to get up onto the podium and have at least something to celebrate. Up ahead of them, Jimmy Bruni's times have been struggling, but he still holds the class lead as in comes finally Henri Moser to hand over to Maurizio Mediani, who's got about 3 laps to do before the checkered flag greets him.
Now Jimmy Bruni leads this, but a little bit of dust for Tim Mullen. Richard Westbrook is at the moment in 2nd place and Tim Mullen in 3rd, but I think Jimmy Bruni could well be within Westbrook's sights. He's 0.4 of a second last time around. Let's have a look at the sectors. They're pretty much, he's a little bit quicker in the middle and the final sector as well. He may, in the remaining 3.5 minutes, find a way to nail the number 50. Of course, a Ferrari, and give Porsche a win that, quite frankly, it's been starved of, hasn't it, this year?
Yeah, they didn't have their own way even at the Spa 24 Hours, where traditionally they've shone, but unfortunately not this year. This is going to be a terrific battle for the last few minutes. We've got 3 minutes and 8 seconds on the clock, and they are going to be the busiest 3 minutes and 5 seconds now of Richard Westbrook's racing life in a long while.
Westbrook's got to think about Tim Mullen, but look at him, he's got the leader right under the gun sight there. All the time this battle has been raging on with Mullen pushing him. They've gone right up onto the tail end of Jimmy Bruni. Now Bruni will know that they've been coming and he'll be controlling the race, but we don't know how his tyres are, we don't know how the car is, we don't know what kind of pressure he might be under, or whether he's got anything in the locker to respond with.
No, the fact that he's where he is, right, it's nice to manage the gap from the front, but he's carrying a lot of extra weight in that car relative to the ones behind him, and that extra weight, no matter how strong the engine is to pull it along, is going to be ripping life out of his tyres.
Well, he's not managed it very well, has he? Because he's got smaller and smaller and smaller, and managing the gap, you should try and keep it static at a level that you find comfortable, and quite frankly, 0.6 of a second isn't comfortable, is it?
No, not unless you're Jimmy Bruni, in which case it's probably more than plenty, thank you. As long as we cross the line 100th ahead, we don't care as long as we're in front.
We're under 2 minutes remaining, and they are into 2 laps. This one and the next one, I think, before the checkered flag will fall. And Tim Mullen still hasn't abandoned his hope of getting past Richard Westbrook. And I'm not sure that Richard Westbrook has abandoned his hope of getting after Jimmy Bruni. Quite clearly that Porsche has used its tyres and then the canvas, and now he's in trouble.
Yeah, he's almost down onto the rims now, isn't he? And again, Mullen carrying much more corner speed through than the Porsche, but not able to make it stick. And back into the equation has come Christophe Bouchou. I'll take a couple of you guys for breakfast, thank you very much. And through comes the SRT Corvette. Let's hope that doesn't diffuse this battle to the flag between the Porsche and the it's defused Rob Bell, I'm afraid. His car is the one that's got caught out there. Don't know how that happened, didn't see the beginning of it. The result though is he's pointing the wrong way and the car is well and truly beached. Is that front wheel broken, or is it just at a really sharp lock?
It's just on a sharp lock, at least I hope so. I'd like to see the other one before I made a firm commitment to that, but I think he's got more of a problem. I think he may have lost drive, because that wheel just spun. Is this a replay? Are we going to see a little touch? I think we might. Yes, he got rudely poked from behind there, didn't he, by Christian Montanari.
Yes, that wasn't wasn't the best of driving on Montanari's part from the angle we could see. Of course, it may have looked quite different from on board. Jimmy Bruni, meanwhile, has got a massive 0.6 of a second still under his belt, while we're looking at race leader Zandy Nograo ready to bring the Vitaphone Maserati home. There's the checker flag, and the victory will go to Zandy Nograo once he reaches that flag. We're still showing 5 seconds on the clock. Here is Nograo coming round to complete that lap. So a little cautious use of the checker flag to make sure that people recognise that they're on there. They've now finished their race, because by the time they get back round, and here we go, four-way battle. How many do you need?
Look who's at the front there. Look who's at the front of that group there. It's Richard Westbrook in the Porsche,
and shuffled down the order. Yep.
So Richard Westbrook is going to give Porsche its first win. How good is this? What a titanic struggle we have seen all the way through. Somehow or other, Richard Westbrook heads this field, and look who's behind it.
It's Tim Mullen, and is he going to make a final stab up the inside on the last corner? Has he got the power to pull away from the Porsche, get past him on the start-finish straight? Don't know that he has. They're coming up to the flag anytime now, and again Bruni's been shuffled down the order because Montanari's made his way past, so he's gone from first to fourth in less than a lap. Richard Westbrook hanging on. Tim Mullen going up alongside. One more chance. Is he going to make it stick? No, he can't. Westbrook still hangs on there, and there's no way back from here. I don't think there's another opportunity on the lap. We'll have to just take a breath and see, but it looks as though Tim Mullen has realised that second is where he's going to have to settle. The winner already on his slowing down lap, and will be celebrating.
So Richard Westbrook gives Porsche their first victory of the year in GT2. They have threatened it so many times and seen it taken away. Maserati in the shape of Zandy Nograo take a good victory here, because they haven't done a lot of winning this year, I have to say, Maserati at all. Spa was their only win of the year. But where did Bertolini finish in number one? Sixth place,
yeah.
With Fabrizio Golin and Mike Hazeman in second place. So that keeps that championship alive. What an astonishing drive that was from Richard Westbrook. We missed the pass that gave him the lead, but we saw everything else. And that went on for lap after lap after lap. Graham, man of the day? It's got to be, hasn't it?
I think we're looking at him.
We've got to be, haven't we? Because that was just amazing.
What a drive in a car that was clearly not the fastest in the field. They got a great start to the weekend when they took the qualifying pole position against their own expectations. They've stumbled across a setup that really worked. Here's a look now at the overtake, the manoeuvre that allowed Richard Westbrook to snatch the lead away from Jimmy Bruni, unable to defend on a set of tyres I suspect that had really got past their sell-by date. Tim Mullen able to tuck in before Montanari could do it, but Westbrook and Alex Davison, what a welcome to the series for the Australian too. Partners up with Richard Westbrook, and they take a checkered flag. And
how funny was that though? Because Jimmy Bruni was stitched up by Westbrook there. It was the overtaking move, wasn't it, at the end of the aerodrome straight, and he knew, I think, that he wasn't going to hold it off. Yeah. But I don't think what he was ready for was that instead of one car, it was three joined together as one, and there wasn't anywhere to get in again. Once he let the first one through, the rest of them had to come through as well. Yeah. So Bruni, expecting to let Westbrook through, let everyone through, and unfortunately, as you say, went from first place down to fourth place, but it'll do.
Nonetheless, he finished where he needed to, which was ahead of Matteo Malicelli. The BMS Scuderia Italia team haven't really featured this afternoon, and in fact, for once, they're not the best of the Pirelli runners, because that honour goes to Scuderia Recos, Stuart Roden's team, with Fabio Babini ending up in sixth place in class.
There is Richard Westbrook, and that's Alex Davison, and that is quite an afternoon's work for this pair. And what a drive from Tim Mullen as well. Now, you said earlier on he wanted to put on a special effort this afternoon. I think we can safely say he's done that.
I should think so. Great drive by Tim Mullen. Andrea Vicini stepping into Chris Niarchos' seat for the weekend and doing great support work. That's Christian Montanari we're looking at, who made third place, and
who may be the Dr. Evil of the afternoon. We'll have to look at the replay before we can decide on that. But I think nevertheless that 4th place is still good enough for Bruni and Wielander to make the title safe. And that's not supposed to happen, is it?
That's just a little bit of warm break, isn't it, I suspect?
No, it's on fire.
Yes, well.
Properly on fire.
I mean, that's warm, isn't it? You're going to have to get that put out or there won't be a car to go through post-race scrutiny.
Run away.
Would be kind of sensible to get an extinguisher on that fairly quickly, please, gentlemen. Thank you very much. Well done. We'll let the driver do it because he's wearing the fireproof gloves.
So, what are we saying? 4th place for Bruni and Wielander gets them, what, 5 points?
Enough points is the answer. And
Balicelli right down the tail end of the field, so they are now far enough in front to start celebration. They've still got a problem with or just the little aftermath there, I think, isn't it, of the extinguishant and a little bit of brake dust on fire. That's how hard they were trying, though.
Yeah, Marcel Fessler having to try and get the extinguishant out of his eyes now, and that's a very unpleasant feeling because it's hideous stuff. It takes away the oxygen in the fire, but it also gives you a very nasty stinging sensation. So that'll just take the edge off the celebrations, unfortunately, for Marcel Fessler and Jean-Denis Delectraz wandering across to offer some consolation as the heat continues to pour off the Corvette. Evidence of just how hard this race has been for everyone concerned. But top honours go to this car this afternoon. Vitaphone again scoring points consistently through the season, and Zandy Nogaro it is who brought the number 2 car ahead of the Fabrizio Gollin driven number 6 Corvette, with Marcel Fessler in 3rd to complete the podium.
Congratulations, Miguel.
Thank you very much. It was a great result. Really, I don't know, I cannot express myself. Chandy, come here.
To the man who brought it home. How was it for you?
It was fantastic. We knew that our car was very good with old tire, and always the qualifying is a problem for us because we can't hit the tire like the others. So we're always very in a bad situation in the qualifying. But then in the race, here especially, we were so quick. We knew before that we were going to be quick, and they had to be patient to overtake everyone in the pit stop and in the last stint. Fantastic result.
Congratulations. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Well, we've got a couple of incidents under investigation on our timing screen, and that involves 6 and 1, and that means the Hazeman Gollin car and the Bartels Bertolini car. So that'll be interesting, won't it?
That was where we saw Bertolini going off on that corner, and also between the 52nd 51 car, which was the one where Rob Bell ended up rotated after contact with Montanari.
Yes, indeed. We still don't know what caused the puncture for the Maserati, but at the moment it's Nogaro, Gollin, Fessler, and then Simonson and Wendlinger 1st to 5th. GT2, Richard Westbrook, a classic first win of the season for Porsche, with Tim Mullen in 2nd place and quite possibly Christian Montanari in 3rd.